As you can probably tell here, I've got a stock Windows 11 installation. It still has the widgets, it's got the normal start menu, it's got the Microsoft Store still installed, it's got Copilot here on the taskbar, and OneDrive is also trying to start up automatically. So basically this is just a stock Windows 11 Pro 23H2 version that I've got running here. Now in this video, I want to show you how you can use Chris Titus Tech's Windows utility to make Windows better, and this is a utility that every Windows user must know about. So if you do a Google search for the Chris Titus Windows utility, you'll normally get these two pages as the best results. One of them takes you to his website and the other one takes you to the GitHub page. It doesn't really matter if you use his website or the GitHub page, but what you're looking for are these launch commands here. So we're just going to launch the stable branch by copying this command here. And then you want to right click on your start button and then either open the terminal or PowerShell as admin. If you have user account control enabled, you'll see the screen. Then you can just click on yes. And that's going to open the terminal or PowerShell. You can then press Ctrl and V, which will paste that command, and then you can press enter, and it's going to start launching the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility on your computer. Now, one misconception is that people think this is a program that gets installed onto your computer. It doesn't get installed onto your computer. It's hosted on the internet at christitus.com, and it just runs through PowerShell, so nothing actually gets downloaded to your computer. Now, it's launched on my computer here. And if for some reason it doesn't seem to fit on your screen, you can always just double click anywhere on this empty white space here and it'll make it full screen. And also if you double click on it again, it'll just minimize that window. So if you have some issues with display, you can just double click on it to make it full screen. Now at the time of this recording, if we go to the settings here and we look at the about section, here you can see the version number, and the Windows utility gets a lot of regular updates. So I can almost guarantee you that in a year or two from now, the utility might look completely different than what you're seeing in this video right now, but most probably it'll still work exactly the same. So for starters, you've got a few different tabs up here, and I'll go through each of them with you in this video. But starting with the Install tab, here you can select a bunch of utilities that you can install on your computer. So what happens is, let's say I select something like 7-Zip, for example, and I click on Install. If I go ahead and press the Windows key, you'll see that there are two different terminals open. One is the GUI for the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility, and then there's also the terminal window here, or the PowerShell window, that shows you the status of what's happening. So the very first time you install something with this utility, it's going to update Winget if it's outdated, and it might also download some other dependencies as well, like you can see here. And then once Winget and all of the prerequisites are installed, then it'll start installing the package or packages that you selected to install. So I just selected 7-Zip as an example, and then once it's finished, you'll see that installs have finished. And if I now have a look at the computer, I've got 7-Zip installed on this PC. Now, one of the cool things about this install section here is if you're someone who sets up a lot of different computers and you're planning on using this Chris Titus Tech Windows utility to help you streamline that process and save a lot of time, what you can do is you can go through and select all of the utilities that you would normally install on a computer. So just as an example, let's say I always install 7-Zip and shell the expanded context menu on every computer that I set up. You can obviously go ahead and select a bunch of these utilities, everything that you would normally install, and then you can go ahead and click on the gear icon up here and then click on export. Now you can save this as like a preset, and I'm just going to save it on the desktop and then click on save. And now you'll have this JSON file here, and you can save this on a USB flash drive, so you always have access to it on different computers. But what you can do in that case is if I click on clear selection, you'll see it's no longer selected. Then if you click on the gear icon again and you click on import, and you import that preset file, then it'll automatically select all of the utilities that you've selected to install on the computer, and then you can click on install and upgrade selected. And this also counts for all of the tweaks that you would select, or basically anything else that you would select in this utility. You can create a preset file so you don't have to go and manually select every single thing every time. Then on each computer you can just import that preset into the utility and then run the tweaks and install the programs, which will save you a lot of time when you're setting up new computers. But that's about it for the install section, so let's go to the tweaks section. Now the Windows utility tweaks that I have in my UnattendedWinstall answer file, basically a lot of them comes from this page here. So what you would normally do here is just click on the standard button, and then it's going to select a bunch of these tweaks here. So before it runs any of these tweaks, it'll create a restore point if you have that selected, which is selected by default when you click on the standard selection up here. But it also has a lot of other useful tweaks. You can delete the temporary files. You can disable consumer features, which is basically like ads in Windows. You can disable telemetry. You can disable activity history, disable the game DVR, disable hibernation, disable home group, which doesn't actually exist anymore in Windows 10 or 11, I think. You can disable location tracking. You can disable storage sense. Teredo, which is a network tunneling feature that can cause additional latency. You can disable Wi-Fi sense, and as you can see, if I hover over these tweaks, it gives you a little tooltip of what this will do. Then it'll also run disk cleanup, and one of the latest additions in this version at least is replacing the default PowerShell 5 with PowerShell 7. And then I'm not using a laptop, but you can set hibernation as the default for laptops, as it's good for laptops. And then I guess you won't disable hibernation up there if you do that. And then this last one that sets services to manual, that's actually what causes the lower process count in Windows 10 and 11. So if I go ahead and I open the Task Manager on this stock Windows 11 install, you'll see that it's still on 145 processes. And if I run these tweaks, you'll see that this will be a lot lower. So right now we have about 3 gigs of memory in use, and the CPU utilization is like between 7 and 15%. So a lot of people says that lowering the process count doesn't really matter. I don't agree or disagree. I'm just saying, why would I want 143 processes running in the background when it could be down to like 70 or 80? Whether that makes a performance difference or not, why would I want all of these processes running if I'm not using them? But getting back to the utility, then you also have some advanced tweaks. So you can do an Adobe network block and Adobe Debloat if you want to do that. You can also disable IPv6. Then you can disable full screen optimizations. You can disable Microsoft Copilot. So for this video example, I'm going to do that because I also have that included in my UnattendedWinstall answer file. Then you can also disable Intel MM, and you can hover over that to see exactly what it does. Now you can also disable the notifications, and this also disables the calendar, unfortunately, because that's just the way that Microsoft programmed it. Then you can also set the display for performance. For this video, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. You can set the classic right-click menu. You can set the time to UTC, and this is usually when you're also using Linux on the same system. So I'm not going to do that. But one of these options here is to remove all the Microsoft Store apps. So you can go ahead and do that because that's what a lot of people want when they use the UnattendedWinstall answer file. You can also remove Microsoft Edge, and you can remove OneDrive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run all of these tweaks right now. So I'll click on that and then just press the Windows key again and then go to the terminal so we can see exactly what's happening. So now it's busy running all of these tweaks. This is the Edge removal script. So right now it's uninstalling Microsoft Edge. And if I move this over, you'll see at the back here, there's also some other operations going on, which is removing the Microsoft apps from the system. Now the Edge removal script is finished, and you can see you can also type the name of another browser in here if you want to reinstall it using this PowerShell window, but I'm just going to be using the Chris Titus utility to install another browser. So you can just go ahead and close the Edge removal window if you removed Microsoft Edge. And as you can see, the rest of the tweaks are still running because I have the disk cleanup running here. So this could take quite some time, but I'm just going to speed it up in the video. So this cleanup has just finished running, so I'm just going to click on OK, and it looks like it's doing the upgrade of PowerShell 5 to PowerShell version 7. So while it's installing that, as you can see, the taskbar already looks different than when I started with this process. There's no widgets on the taskbar anymore. The search bar is also gone, and then I see that I still have Edge on here, but as you see, if I click on it, it doesn't open. So I can go ahead and unpin that. And removing Edge from Windows 10 and Windows 11 is always going to be a pain. There's always going to be some sort of remnant left of it on your computer. Like you can see, it's still in the pinned apps here, but it doesn't launch. So you'll just manually have to go and unpin this from any menu that you see. You can see that I can't unpin Microsoft Edge from this All Apps menu. But what you need to do is you need to go to Open File Location, and then you just need to delete the shortcut here from the Start Menu Programs folder. And then if you go back, it should be gone from the list of apps on your start menu. But like I said, you'll always have some remnants of Microsoft Edge on the computer left because it's part of Windows. Removing it completely is very difficult. But once all of those tweaks have finished running, you'll see that the tweaks are finished. Another thing that I just wanted to show you here is you can also click on this Run ONO Shutup 10 button. Now, if you don't know what ONO Shutup 10 is, if I click on that, it basically launches this software here. And this also helps you get better privacy on Windows. So you can either set the settings for the current user or for the local machine. And you'll see that there are some different settings switching between these two tabs. But you can go through each of them individually if you want and decide what you want to disable or leave enabled. But you can basically click on Actions here. Then you can apply the recommended settings, or you can apply the recommended and somewhat recommended settings, or you can go ahead and apply all settings. Now, basically what these three settings mean is applying only the recommended settings means your Windows experience will still be stable. Applying the recommended and somewhat recommended settings means you might run into some trouble with some apps that you're trying to use. And then if you apply all settings, there's definitely some stuff that's just not going to be working in Windows anymore. But you can also create a system restore point before doing this. So if something breaks, you can just go back to the system restore point, or you can also undo all of the changes and just go back to the factory settings. So just for the sake of this video, I'm just going to apply all the settings because this is a test machine, and if something breaks, then we'll also see it in the video. But I'm just going to apply all of the settings. I'll create a system restore point just so I can go back, and you should definitely create a system restore point if you're doing this on your computer. So as you can see, the settings have been applied both to the current user and the local machine. So now you can just exit out of ONO Shutup 10 again. Now, as you can see here, some of these settings may possibly revert after Windows updates. So you can just go ahead and run ONO Shutup 10 again with the settings that you selected, and then you'll have all of those privacy settings applied again. You'll also see that I'm prompted to restart Windows to apply all of these changes, and we're going to be doing that at the end of this video. So for now, I'm just going to close this window. But what I wanted to mention to you as well is you can use the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility as well after every Windows update, because Windows Update has a way of re-enabling a lot of stuff again that you might not know about. So running these utilities again after each Windows update is always a good idea. But moving on with the utility here, you can see you also have some preferences here where you can easily enable or disable some settings in Windows. So for example, if I click on the slider for the dark theme, it'll then enable the dark theme in Windows. So you'll see the start menu is dark, but the taskbar isn't. But after we restart Windows, the taskbar will be dark as well. So you have a lot of these preferences here that you can go through and enable or disable to your liking. For example, the Bing search in start menu, I'm going to disable that because I don't want search results from Bing in the start menu. You can switch on the numlock on startup. You can show file extensions by default. You also have these snap windows and assist flyouts and mouse acceleration, which I'll definitely disable. You can enable the taskbar search. You can enable widgets, task view button, and sticky keys. Then lastly, you can also add and activate the ultimate performance plan. So if you go ahead and click on that, and you come over to the config tab up here and you go to legacy Windows panels and you click on power panel, it'll take you to this screen where you'll have the additional plans where you can then activate the ultimate performance plan on your computer, which can obviously give you better performance because it uses more power and then in turn provides ultimate performance on higher end PCs. But going back to the tweaks here, you can also create a WinUtil shortcut, and I guess you can just select the save location. So for example, if I save it on the desktop, then you'll have a shortcut to the Windows utility on your desktop. But going over to the config tab here, you can also install some of these features here like .NET Framework, Windows Subsystem for Linux, Windows Sandbox, and then you can enable that legacy F8 boot recovery screen that you used to have in Windows 7, for example. Then you also have some fixes here like setting up auto login. You can reset Windows Update, you can reset the network, you can do a system corruption scan, which basically runs SFC scan now and DISM repair. So if you're having some issues on your computer, you can use this to try and fix that. You can reinstall Winget, and then you can remove the Adobe Creative Cloud from your computer. Then, like I showed you earlier, you can get access to the legacy control panel, Windows panels. So for example, the network connections, you can get to that easily from here. You can get to the user accounts screen easily from inside of the Tech Windows utility. Then if you go over to the Updates tab here, this is where you can set settings for Windows Update. So you have the default settings, which is what every normal install of Windows will have. Then you have the security recommended settings, which is basically the same way that I have it set up in my answer files. But one thing I want to mention here is it says it'll delay feature updates by 2 years and it'll install security updates 4 days after release. But from the info that I got, you can only delay feature updates by 1 year. So I think this tooltip might be incorrect. But anyway, this is where you can only apply security updates. So you can set those update settings here, or you can disable all of the updates. And as you can see, it's not recommended because then you won't get security updates. But some people just don't care about it and they'll just disable all of the updates. But for this video, I'm just going to select the security setting here. So if I click on that, the recommended update settings has been loaded. So I'm just going to click on OK. And then lastly, MicroWin is another project inside of the Tech Windows utility where you can basically upload an ISO file, a Windows 11 ISO file. You'll see all of the instructions here. You can basically remove these things from the Windows image. So you can remove the telemetry and tracking. You can add the ability to use local accounts. You can remove the Wi-Fi requirement to finish the install. You have the ability to remove Edge. You have the ability to remove Defender. You have the ability to remove Teams. It also debloats apps, which is basically the same type of thing that my answer files do, but the process is just a bit different because you actually mount the ISO file and then the scripts run on the Windows image. Then the Windows image gets put back into the target ISO file, and then you can use that ISO file to install Windows. So basically you can create a custom ISO file with MicroWin. It's basically the same way that Tiny11 Builder works, where you provide a Windows ISO file, then all of the scripts run on the Windows image because it's mounted in DISM. Then it repacks that Windows image into the ISO file, which is usually also a lot smaller than the official Windows ISO file. And another great thing that Chris Titus and the developers have added here is you have the ability to add drivers to that Windows ISO file. So for a lot of you working in the tech industry, this might be a good project to keep an eye on because it'll also help you create custom Windows ISO files that you can use to prep a lot of different computers. Now, I might make a different video in the future looking specifically at MicroWin, so you can keep an eye out on the channel for that. But this is all that I wanted to show you in the Tech Windows utility. So I'm just going to exit out of it and then close the terminal as well. Once again, you can see I still have this Microsoft Edge icon here, but if I double click on it, it's not going to launch because it doesn't work anymore. So I'm just going to delete it and then empty the recycle bin as well. And then I also still have this preset file that I showed you earlier. But let's go ahead and restart the computer. So once we get back, we can just have a look at some of the settings that we've changed. So after the restart, you can see that dark mode is completely enabled now. If I open the start menu, it's still populated with a lot of these apps. So it doesn't get rid of everything like my answer file does, but you can also just go ahead and right click on these apps and click on uninstall, which will also uninstall it from the computer. And you can do the same thing with these apps here. But I guess you don't want to go through all of the trouble going through these things one by one, uninstalling them from the computer. But if we have a look at the settings here, and we have a look at privacy and security, I'm interested to see what these settings look like. So these are all turned off. If we have a look at speech, it's turned off. Typing personalization is turned off. Diagnostics and feedback, these are all turned off, which is good to see. The activity history should be turned off. So I think a lot of these settings were set by ONO Shutup 10. So also using that in the Tech Windows utility is a good thing. And if we go to system and we have a look at the notifications, that is also disabled. And that's also good to see because that's one of the settings we selected. The Windows Update will also still work normally, and because I selected the recommended settings, which is only to install security updates, that's the only updates that will be installed. But like I said, after installing Windows updates, it's a good idea always just to run the Windows utility again and select those tweaks again and then run them on your system. Now, if you right click on the Start button and you go to Installed Apps, you can actually uninstall these apps as well, like the calculator and the camera app, for example, as well as Cortana. So you have the option of uninstalling these apps in your computer, without the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility. As you can see, Microsoft Edge and Edge Update is still here, but it doesn't work. Like I said, there will always be some remnants left on the system. But if you want to get rid of these other apps that you're not using, like Quick Assist, for example, you can also uninstall that. You can uninstall the sticky notes. You have the option of uninstalling these apps inside of Windows as well. But that's the whole point of the answer files that I created and why I created that UnattendedWinstall GitHub repo, because I set up a lot of different computers, and going through this process on each computer that you set up is very annoying and takes a lot of time. So the whole point of those UnattendedWinstall answer files is to automate a lot of the processes that I would normally have to do manually. And as you can see, the process count is also down compared to the stock Windows install that we saw earlier. And like I said, a lower process count might not necessarily make your computer faster, but why would I want a whole bunch of processes running in the background when they don't need to be running when I'm not using them? So that's my thought process behind it. And like I said, this is one of the ways that you can use to basically get the same type of experience that I have in my UnattendedWinstall answer files on an existing Windows installation. And I know my standard file also removes the Microsoft Store, and you can see that you can't uninstall it here, but you can actually uninstall it using the terminal or PowerShell as admin. And you can do that by just running this command here. If you run that, it's going to uninstall the Microsoft Store from your system. So this is only for the people who don't use it. But the rest of these apps, you can go ahead and right click on them and then just uninstall. Same with the Xbox app, and all of these other apps you can install in the same way. But like I said, that's why I have the answer files. So this process is already automated for you, and you don't have to go through this if you're installing Windows on a bunch of different computers. But I really like the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility. It helps you a lot on computers that already has a stable running Windows, where people have already installed their apps and files and they can't necessarily afford to reinstall Windows and go through the entire setup process again because they have specific software that they use with the license keys and all of that. Then running the tweaks in the Windows utility is a very good choice for getting a more deep-loaded experience in Windows. Imagine you do a clean install of Windows using the official Windows 10 or 11 ISO file from Microsoft, and once you get to the desktop, it looks like this. There's no Microsoft Edge or OneDrive, no pre-installed bloatware apps like the widgets or Copilot, for example, and the start menu is clean. On top of that, if you open the Task Manager and look at the process count, it's also way lower than a stock Windows install. And then when you look at the privacy settings, it's all disabled and Windows is just fast, smooth, and really responsive without you even having to do anything to get it to that point. So you might be wondering how that's even possible. Well, listen up and don't skip through this video because I'll show you exactly how you can do it too. Microsoft allows you to add answer files or unattended files to Windows images, or also called Windows ISO files. Now these answer files can be used to modify various Windows settings in the Windows image, and they are executed during different phases in the Windows setup process. So if you've ever used Rufus to create Windows installation media and you saw this screen with these options like remove the Windows 11 hardware requirements and disable privacy questions and so on, they achieve that by including an answer file in the installation media that executes those commands during the Windows setup. In my opinion, the best thing about an answer file is that it's very safe. First of all, you can see every single change it's going to make to the Windows image by inspecting the answer file. There's also no need to download custom ISO files from unofficial sources because you insert it on the official Windows 10 or 11 ISO file that you download directly from Microsoft. And then lastly, it's also not dependent on any third-party tools, and it's an official Microsoft feature that's normally used to make mass Windows deployments easier, like in corporate environments, for example. Now you can create your own answer file with the customized Windows settings you want, and this is one of the best places you can do it at. You can use this website here to generate an unattended answer file, and as you can see, there are a lot of settings and tweaks to choose from. Once you've selected your preferred tweaks and settings, you can just download the XML file and then add it to your Windows installation media. And I'll show you exactly how you can do that later on in the video. Now I've created my own answer file that I've started using to automate and streamline my Windows installs, and that's what I want to share here with you. It basically automates a lot of the tweaks and scripts created by projects like the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility and Tiny11, for example. The answer file works on both Windows 10 and Windows 11, and I've tested it on the Pro version of Windows 10 22H2 and Windows 11 23H2 without any issues. My motivation for this project is to get an LTSC-like or even better experience on the Pro and Home versions of Windows 10 and 11 without having to worry about getting an LTSC license. Also, I have to start looking at making Windows 11 better since Microsoft announced that they won't be supporting Windows 10 anymore starting late 2025, and I hate the stock Windows 11. Now, the answer file automates many parts of the Windows setup and saves me a ton of time because I don't have to run a bunch of programs and scripts every time I do a fresh install of Windows. It's already debloated and customized with my preferred settings as soon as I get to the desktop. Now look, it would be impossible for me to create a single answer file that'll please everyone, so instead I'm supplying you with one that basically removes everything except Windows security and is over-tweaked, if you will, so you can just edit the file and remove the tweaks you don't want. Additionally, you can also add more tweaks or customizations if you have the know-how, but please note that I'll not provide any form of support for any changes you make to the file. So you're probably wondering how to get it and how to use it, so let me show you. You need to go to the UnattendedWinstall GitHub page, and I'll leave a link to that in the description of the video. Now once you're here, you need to find this autounattend.xml file and then click on it. It'll open this page here where you can inspect the file, but you need to download it, and you can do that by clicking on this little arrow over here. That's the download button. It'll download the file and save it on your computer. Next, you need to include this auto-unattended answer file on your Windows installation media so it can be read and executed during the Windows setup. Now I'm going to show you a few ways to do it, and if you need any help with something I mention in this next section of the video, I'll leave some of my guides on these topics in the description of this video, so you can go ahead and check out those videos if you're unsure on how to do any of these things that I mention here. Now the first method is to create a bootable Windows installation USB first, and then just copy the answer file to the USB drive. So you'll need to create a Windows 10 or 11 bootable installation USB drive, and you can do that with the media creation tool from Microsoft or Rufus, for example. But please note, when you're using Rufus, don't select any of these checkboxes in the Customize Your Windows Experience window you see here, as it creates another answer file, and we don't want that because we already have an answer file. Now once you've created the Windows installation USB, you can just copy the autounattend.xml answer file to the root of the USB drive. Next, just boot from the USB drive, do a clean install of Windows as normal, and the scripts will run automatically. Now for method 2, you can create a custom Windows ISO file with the answer file embedded into it. So to do that, download the Windows 10 or Windows 11 ISO file depending on the version you want. Then next, download and install AnyBurn. Once that's done, in AnyBurn, select the Edit Image File option, and then navigate to and select the official Windows ISO file you downloaded earlier. Click on the Add button up here and then select the answer file you downloaded earlier, or alternatively, you can just click and drag the answer file into the AnyBurn window. You should then see it included as part of the files on the Windows ISO file. Now just click on Next and then click on Create Now, and then you should be prompted to overwrite the ISO file. Just click on Yes, and then once that's complete, you can just close AnyBurn. Now you can use this ISO file to install Windows on a virtual machine, or you can use a program like Ventoy to create a bootable USB flash drive and then just copy the edited Windows ISO file onto it. Then you can boot from the Windows installation USB, do a clean install of Windows as normal, and the scripts will run automatically. Now as an example, I'll be installing Windows 11 23H2 on a virtual machine and take you through each part of the script as it executes. So once you boot from the Windows installation media, before you get to the first setup screen, you should notice some command prompt windows flashing briefly and then closing. This part of the installation is called the Windows pre-installed environment, and the commands that were executed there are these commands, which removes the Windows 11 system requirements. From here, you can go through all of the normal installation prompts like you always do, select the drive where you want to install Windows, and then just start the installation. Once the initial part of the Windows installation is complete, your computer will restart, and then it enters into the Specialize phase. Now you'll see a bunch of PowerShell and command prompt windows appear and disappear, and you just need to leave the computer to finish executing these scripts. Now the Specialize phase is this part of the script, and this is where most of the changes and tweaks are executed in my version of the answer file. These tweaks include a bunch of registry entries being created and PowerShell scripts being run, including some of the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility scripts that debloats Windows and removes a lot of these apps, and also lowers the process count in Windows. Now you can read through the answer file to see exactly what's being executed, but basically these run synchronous commands that you see here, they reference scripts that are located further down in the answer file. Now after this phase, your computer will restart again, and then you'll be taken to the onboarding experience. This is also called the out-of-box experience, or OOBE, and it's this part of the script here. Now this is also straightforward, and you need to go through all of the usual prompts and select your preferred settings, but you will be prompted to create a local account. You won't be able to log in with a Microsoft account here, and I don't recommend that you use a Microsoft account anyway. But once you get to the desktop, it should take a few seconds, and then you should see another window appear running a bunch of tweaks, and then your computer will restart again. Those are the last commands that will run from the answer file, and it just modifies the registry for the current user profile to ensure that all the values are properly set. I had to include this as some of the registry values that are created for the default user profile during the specialize phase are changed or reset when loading into a new user profile. So this just ensures that all of the registry values for the current user are correctly set. And this part of the script will also run once every time you create a new user account on the computer. Now finally, you'll be able to use this custom version of Windows. So as you can see, this answer file basically strips out everything from Windows, and a lot of the Windows settings are disabled by default. I understand how this can be a bit too much for some people, but the way I see it is that you have two options. You can treat this installation like a blank canvas and just download and install what you need back into Windows, even the Windows apps. Or you can download a code editor like VS Code, Notepad++, or my favorite, Cursor, to edit the answer file before including it in your installation media. So the reason I like using Cursor is because it has AI built in, and I found it really helpful during the creation of this file, as I really don't have a lot of experience with scripts and programming. So if you want to edit the answer file, I suggest using Cursor, and then you can press Ctrl and F to search for a specific term. Like let's say you wanted to add Notepad back into Windows, for example. Then you can just search for Notepad and remove any entries related to Notepad and save the file again. Alternatively, you can press Ctrl and L or click on this icon up here to open the AI chat. Change it to GPT-4o or whatever is the latest GPT version, and then just ask it a question. For example, you can ask it something like, show me all of the entries related to Notepad, or help me add Notepad back into the Windows installation. And the AI will help you figure it out and show you how to get it done. And in that way, you can customize the file to your liking. Then once you're happy, you can just save it and include it in your Windows installation media like I explained earlier. If you've been following this channel for the past month or so, you might already be familiar with my UnattendedWinstall GitHub repo, where I shared some of my pre-made unattended answer files with you. And I've gotten a lot of requests from you guys to create a guide on how you can create your own unattended answer file for Windows 10 and Windows 11. So in this video, I want to take you through a step-by-step process on how you can use the Schneegans website to generate your own unattended answer file for Windows 10 or Windows 11. So to get to this webpage, you can just do a Google search for the Schneegans unattended generator, and then you can open this webpage here. Or if you go to my UnattendedWinstall GitHub repo, if you scroll down on this page, you'll also see that you can just click on this unattended generator link here, and then it's going to take you to the web page. So you can use this website to create your own answer files to perform unattended Windows installations, and this works on both Windows 10 and Windows 11. Now let's go through the settings that you can choose here so you can automate your Windows installs. So you can automate this part of the Windows setup if you want to choose your region and language settings here. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to leave the default language on English, but I'm going to change the date and time format to English South Africa because that's where I live. So you would obviously just choose these settings according to where you live in the world. You can select your default keyboard layout here. Mine is US, so that's fine. I'm just going to leave that. And then the country or region is also correct because I already set it up there, so it just changed this value as well. Now you can also add secondary keyboard layouts here if you want. I'm not going to be doing that. Or if you don't want to automate this part of the setup, you can just click on this button here. So you can select your language settings interactively during the Windows setup. So that just means this part of the Windows setup won't be automated. But like I said, for this video, I'm going to be using this setting here. And obviously, if you're intending to use this answer file on different locations in the world, then you would probably want to use this setting here. For the CPU settings here, most people will be using Intel or AMD 64-bit. So if you don't know what this setting means, most probably you should just leave it on 64-bit. But as you can see here, when you select multiple of these processor settings, then a single auto unattended XML file will be created that's applicable to all of these architectures. So what you can do here is you can hold down Control on your keyboard and then you can select all of these settings here. So that just means the answer file will work on whatever hardware you have because you've selected all of these settings. So I'm going to leave all of that selected. Next, for the setup settings, you can bypass the Windows 11 requirements if you want. You'll obviously want to check this setting if your computer doesn't support Windows 11. But if your PC supports Windows 11, then you don't have to check this. I'm going to select it for this video. And then also, do you want to allow Windows 11 to be installed without an internet connection? I'm going to check this box as well because it just makes the Windows 11 setup process so much easier. Next, in the computer name settings, you can either let Windows generate a random computer name, which is the default setting, or you can choose a computer name for yourself. So once again, if you're planning on installing this on a whole bunch of different computers for different people, maybe it's going to be best if it just generates a random computer name, but you have the option to choose a computer name yourself. So I'm just going to call mine Memory PC, just for the sake of this video. And then for the time zone, you can either let Windows determine your time zone based on the language and region settings, which is most probably the default Windows setting, or you can set your time zone explicitly. I'm just going to leave it on the default Windows setting so it can determine based on my language and region settings. And then the partition and formatting, you can partition your disk interactively during the Windows setup, which is what I'm going to be doing in this video, where you basically select a drive during the Windows installation. But you also have the option of automating this, where you can let the Windows setup wipe, partition and format your hard drive, or more specifically disk 0 using these settings. So most probably using this setting would be best if you only had one physical disk in your computer, one hard drive or SSD. Then you can select these settings to either choose a GPT or MBR layout. And then you also have some settings with regards to the Windows recovery partition, where you can either install it on a recovery partition, or you can install the recovery partition on the Windows partition, or you can remove the Windows recovery partition altogether. But as you can see here, it seems that in Windows 24H2, this setting is ignored and it'll always create a recovery partition with a minimum size of 600 megs. So that's at the time of recording this video. But you also have the option to use a custom diskpart script to configure your disks, and you also have some settings down here if you choose to use that. For most people, I would just recommend leaving this on partition the disk interactively during the Windows setup. So moving on to the next section, for the Windows edition, you can either use a generic product key. So basically what this means is you can already select the Windows edition that you want to install. So for example, you can choose Home or Pro or any of these other versions. I'm going to select Pro in this video. So as you can see, it uses a generic product key to install Windows, but Windows will not activate with this key. It's not a key to activate Windows, it's just a key to determine which version of Windows you want to install. And then you can obviously enter your own product key later so you can activate Windows. Then you also have the option of entering your own product key here. So if you select this option, you'll have to manually edit the auto unattended XML file, and then you need to find this key section here and then replace these numbers with your Windows product key. So it'll install Windows using your product key that you have. For this guide, I'm just going to use a generic product key and install the Pro edition of Windows. Now, when it gets to user accounts, you can let Windows Setup create the following local or offline accounts. So it seems you can create up to 5 users here, and then you can also say to which group it must belong. So for example, administrators or normal users. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to remove the one user account and we'll only create one account, which is going to be an admin account, meaning it'll have full rights. And I'm going to call this memory, and the password, I'm just going to remove that and leave it blank because that's going to be my user profile. Then you have some other settings here where you can choose how you want to log on for the first time. So you can either log on with the first administrator account that you created here, which is going to be this account, or you can activate the built-in administrator account that's included in every version of Windows 10 and 11, or you can choose not to log on at all and then the installation will just end with the sign-in screen being shown. For this video, I'm just going to log on to the first admin account created above, which is this one, and that's going to be the user account that I'll be using in any case. Then you also have the option to obscure all account passwords with base 64. Basically, this could just add another layer of security to your password. But I don't even have a password created here, so I'm not going to select this, but you can select that if you want to. Or you have the option to add user accounts interactively during the Windows setup. So you usually choose this if you want to use a Microsoft or online account. Then we have some password settings. So we can set passwords to not expire, or we can use the Windows default, which is 42 days, or you can use a custom password expiration value. Now these settings only apply to local accounts, and the password for the built-in administrator account never expires. So for this video, I'm just going to set it to passwords do not expire. I'm not going to be using a password in this installation in any case, but you need to set these settings to whatever you want to have it set to. Then you also have some settings with regards to account lockout policy. You can use the default policy, which will lock you out of an account after 10 failed attempts. You can disable this policy, but that might leave your computer vulnerable to brute force attacks. So I wouldn't recommend doing this, or you can use a custom policy. I'm just going to use the default policy here. And then we have some optimizations and tweaks that we can do. So for one example, you can disable Windows Defender here. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but it is an option that you can use. Obviously, I don't really recommend doing this because you don't have any built-in security into Windows then. But as you can see, this also disables certain services, and they're all listed here. So you can have a look at that to see what each of them does. And then you also have the option, if you select this, to disable the Windows Defender services early. And this is most probably if you're going to be using Windows 11 24H2. Because if you don't do this, then you won't be able to disable the services during the later stages of the setup. But like I said, I'm not going to be using that in this video example, but just know that this is an option. Then you can also disable system protection or system restore. And you would probably want to do this if you want to use less disk space, but I recommend leaving system protection turned on. You can enable long file paths, which I think is a really good setting to have selected. So I'll select that. You can enable remote desktop services, and you can select that if you're going to be using that. Then you have this harden ACL setting. So this basically removes the write permissions on the C drive for the authenticated users group. And as you can see, this just prevents some users from creating folders on your C drive, such as C Windows, for example. You don't want that to happen. So you can use this setting if you basically want to stop people from breaking the computer. In this example, I'm not going to be selecting this. And then you also have the option of allowing execution of PowerShell scripts. And this allows you to run unsigned PowerShell script files. Now, this could be a bad idea. You should never run PowerShell scripts from any sources that you don't know where they come from. But leaving this setting disabled could provide you some more protection on your computer, especially if you're not that tech savvy. But in this example, I'm going to select that because I will be running PowerShell scripts on my computer. Then next, you have this option to do not update the last access timestamp, and this can have some effect on your file system performance. So I'm going to select that for this video. You can check this option to not reboot with any users signed in. I'm just going to leave that unchecked. You can turn off system sounds. You can disable app suggestions, and I'm definitely going to check that because this is going to prevent the silent download and installation of any suggested apps by Microsoft, and that basically is a lot of the bloatware that Microsoft puts into Windows these days. You have the option to disable the widgets, which is that Bing News and Weather widget that you have in Windows. You can prevent the automatic BitLocker encryption on Windows 11, and I would definitely suggest checking this box here. You can use the classic right-click menu in Windows 11. I'm definitely going to be selecting that. And then you also have this option to audit process creation events. So each time a new process is created, Windows writes an event to the security log, and this is a very powerful tool for troubleshooting. And then you can also include command line in log events if you want to use this setting. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but that is an option. Then if you're planning on using this on virtual machines, you can pre-install these guest editions and tools for the virtual machine software that you're going to use. I'm not going to be using that in this video, so we'll go on to the next section, which is the wireless LAN or Wi-Fi setup. So this setting is basically that screen where you have to connect to your Wi-Fi network during the Windows setup. So here you also have the option to automate this, where you can already enter your network name or SSID, and then also the password and the authentication type. For this video, I'm just going to skip the Wi-Fi configuration because I'm not going to be connecting using Wi-Fi anyway. And then you also have some other options here with regards to the Wi-Fi where you can configure it using an XML file. We're not going to be looking at that in this video, so we'll continue with the Express settings here. And that's the privacy settings where it asks you if you want to send diagnostic data and personalized input and your location history to Microsoft. So you have the option to disable all of this, which I definitely suggest you leave selected. You can enable it all, or you can choose the settings during the Windows setup. I really recommend just disabling this. Then you have the option to remove bloatware, and this basically removes all of the apps that come pre-installed in Windows. So what you can do here is you can click on select all, and then you can just deselect the apps that you actually want to have installed on Windows. So from my experience, most people want to have Calculator installed as well as Notepad. So you can leave the modern Notepad selected and the classic Notepad. They also want Paint. They want the snipping tool. Some people want Terminal. And then some of you also want the Xbox app. I'm not going to be selecting that in this video, but basically you have the option of choosing which apps you want to get pre-installed in Windows 10 or 11. So as you can see here, the developer says that the bloatware removal works best with the original Windows 10 and 11 ISO files. He didn't perform any tests with custom images. So I also recommend just using the original Windows 10 or 11 ISO images. Don't use any custom Windows images. It's a huge security risk. And then also, if you select one or more of these apps to remove, the shortcuts and tiles and pinned icons will all be removed from the start menu as well. So this basically cleans up the start menu in Windows 10 and 11 as well. Now we get to the section where we can run custom scripts. So here you have a lot of options. You can run scripts in the system context before user accounts are created. Then if you scroll down, you can also run scripts that modify the default user's registry hive. Now, in my experience with creating these pre-made answer files, there is an issue that some of the registry entries that you create on this default user's registry hive, it doesn't actually get applied when you create a new user in Windows. So for this section here, I would just recommend don't even bother entering anything here. You can rather just use this part of the script where you can run script whenever a user logs on for the first time. So what this looks like is if we scroll all the way back and we have a look at scripts to run in the system context before user accounts are created. If we go to my answer files that I created and we have a look at the standard file, if you have a look at the code here, you're going to see that I have a local machine file, and that is this file here, which is the local machine.cmd file. So there's a lot of registry entries that I added here. So what you can do is you can go through the list of registry entries that I created, and then you can select whatever you want to have applied to your local machine, to the whole computer, because that's what HKLM means. It's going to be applied to the local machine, the entire computer. Then you can select whatever you want to select here and then paste it into your script file here as a CMD file. So as you can see, you can choose CMD file. This one is going to be a PowerShell script file. This one is going to be a registry file, and this will be a VBS script. But what I did is I created registry entries in a CMD script. So just as an example, let's say that I want to use these settings where I want to disable the activity history for the entire machine. Then you can just come over and you can copy these settings here, and then you can paste it into this CMD section. And then you can go ahead and copy and paste as many of these options, or you can even do your own research for commands that you want to run in a CMD file in the system context before user accounts are created. So remember, this will apply to the local machine, meaning I don't need a user account to make these changes to the local computer. So you can run whatever scripts you want here, but if we go all the way down to the other section where you can write a script to run whenever a user logs on for the first time, and you go back to my unattended answer files, you'll also see that I have a current user file. So here you'll see I have a current user.cmd file, and this will basically run once each time a new user logs on for the first time. And these all apply to the current user. So what you can do in this case is, in my example, I'm just going to copy this entire script that I wrote for the current user. I'm just going to copy that, and then I'm going to put it into this CMD box here. So that means all of these settings is going to apply to the current user as soon as it logs on for the first time. Now below here, you can see how these scripts will be run if you're interested in that. And once again, you don't have to just use my settings. You can do your own research and add whatever entries or whatever command to prompt scripts, PowerShell scripts, registry files, whatever you want to add to your Windows installation, you can add that. I'm just using the stuff I already created as an example for creating or customizing your own unattended answer file. Now moving on, you have the Windows Defender application control. So you can configure a policy here if you want, and you can configure it using these settings. I'm not going to be using that in this video. I'm just not going to configure that policy. And then you also have some placeholders for more components. So you can generate some more templates for all available components. And you can have a look at all of these components here that you can use to automate your Windows installs. I'm not going to be using that in this video. It's a bit more advanced, but you can do your own research on this if you want to add even more components to your Windows installation here. So once you've filled out all of those settings, now you can download your XML answer file, or you can download an ISO file with the XML file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the XML file. That's going to be saved on my desktop. So if I minimize my browser, I now have this auto unattended XML file here. And if I open that, it's going to open with Cursor, which is my code editor. And then you can see all of the settings exactly like you selected it. And you can now even make more changes to this file and add even more settings if there's something you forgot. But as you can see, here is the CMD scripts that I copy and pasted. And like I said, you can run your own command prompt scripts, own PowerShell scripts. You can do whatever you want by using this auto unattended generator that's created by Schneegans. And you can just automate a whole bunch of the Windows installation process. Now, I've already made a step-by-step video showing you exactly how you can include this auto unattended answer file on your Windows installation media and then install Windows with that. So I'm not going to be showing you how to do that in this video, but I will link that video at the end of this video and in the description of this video. But as you can see on screen now, while I'm installing Windows, a lot of the stuff that you would normally have to select manually is already automated for me, which saves a lot of time. And as you can see after the installation, it also loaded into my user profile automatically and ran that current user script that I copy and pasted. And as you can see now, dark mode is enabled, and if we have a look at all of the apps here, only the apps that I selected to be installed on my computer is installed, like Paint, Notepad, the snipping tool. And then if we go to settings and we have a look at the privacy settings here and we go to the activity history, you'll see that this is all turned off because remember, that's one of the parts of the script that I copy and pasted to run on the local machine, which affects the entire computer. So that's how you can generate your own answer file, and I hope this video was useful to you. If it was, please give it a like, and I'll talk to you guys soon. To install a cool looking custom mouse cursor on Windows 10 and Windows 11, you can visit this website called deviantart.com, and first you'll just need to create a free account and sign into that account. And once you've done that, you can come over and then do a search for mouse cursor. And then you'll get all of these results for mouse cursors that you can download. Now, some of these might be paid, but a lot of them are free. And you can choose whatever you want here. The one that I normally use is this Windows 11 cursor by Jepri Creations. So I'm going to show you how to download and install that. But the process for installing these cursors are all exactly the same. This specific cursor pack is a paid cursor pack. As you can see, I need to pay for it to download it. But if you scroll down here, you can also get a free version by clicking on this link. And I'm going to download the free version by going to the web page, and then I'll click on this download button right here. That's going to download the zip file, so I'll just open that in my downloads folder. And then I'm going to right click on this and just extract it to my downloads folder. And once the files have been extracted, you'll see these files. Now you can also read this document to see how to install it, but this cursor comes in a light and a dark cursor. I'm going to be installing the dark cursor, so I'll select the dark folder, and then I'm going to go to cursor. Now inside of this folder, you'll find an install file, and the type is setup information. You can just right click on that, and then click on install. Then click on open, and click yes to any prompts, and it'll install the cursor. And you can just make sure that the cursor is selected in this drop-down menu, the one that you just installed. And then you can click on apply and then OK. This prompt says it's already in use, but it's not, so I'll just click on yes. And now you can see that my cursor has changed to the cursor that I just downloaded. So inside of this folder, you'll see there's also a lot of other cursors, and the cursor will change as you use different functions in Windows and on your computer. For instance, if I go to this folder, you'll see the cursor has changed. And if I try and resize this, the cursor has also changed. Today we're going to be taking a look at ProtonVPN, and more specifically we're going to be having a look at the new ProtonVPN browser extension, and this works on both Chrome and Firefox based browsers. Now before you download this, I do recommend that you go ahead and click the first link in the video's description. It's going to take you to this page where you can get ProtonVPN free, and it's going to allow you to sign up with a free account from this page. So you're going to click on Get ProtonVPN Free, and then if you want, you can pay for this. But we obviously want to use the free version, so you'll just click on Get ProtonVPN Free. It's going to load a new page, and then you can create your account. So I'm just going to enter one of my email addresses here. Then I'm going to click on Start Using ProtonVPN. It's creating our account. ProtonVPN is automatically going to generate a password for you that's going to be secure. And you can continue with this password if you want. But for this video, I'm just going to create my own password. So if you don't want to use the default password, just go ahead and enter a new password here. Once that's done, just click on Set New Password, and then you'll be prompted to download ProtonVPN. Now, you'll only need to do this if you want to install the VPN onto your computer. And I basically show you how to do this in the other video I mentioned before, which you can also find on my website. But specifically for this video here, I'm going to close that. Then we're going to go to the ProtonVPN browser extension page. And I'll also have links to both the Chrome browser extension as well as the Firefox browser extension in the article that I'm going to have on my website, and you can find a link to that in the description of this video. So once you've created your free account, just go ahead and click on Add to Chrome, then click on Add Extension. Now you should see that it's been added as an extension, and depending on your browser, you're just going to have to go to the extensions and then manage your extensions, and you should see ProtonVPN here, and it should be enabled. Just go ahead and click on Details, and what I recommend you do here is pin it to the toolbar, and that you also allow it to run in private windows or incognito tabs. To use it, you can basically just click on the ProtonVPN icon up there, and then you're going to need to sign in, and then you're going to enter the details that you just used to create your free account. So I'm going to enter the email address and the password, and then I'm also going to choose to stay signed in, and then you should see this message that says you're signed in, and you can open the browser extension to continue. So if we click on the browser extension now, right now I'm not connected to any server at the moment. So if I go ahead and click on connect, it's automatically going to connect to a free server that's available. So using the free version, you are going to have some limitations. You can't select any country and just connect to any server that you want. You'll have to upgrade if you want to do that. But just having a VPN enabled in your browser is already going to give you a little bit more privacy than you had before if you weren't using a VPN at all. And one of the best things about ProtonVPN, if we go back here, is there's no data or speed limits. So you don't have a cap to how much data you can use. There's no ads, and it also doesn't log any of your online activity. So I really like ProtonVPN. This video isn't sponsored at all. This is just the VPN that I use on a daily basis, and the fact that the browser extension is free makes it so much better now, because it just makes it so much easier for us to protect our privacy while browsing the internet. So you do also have some other features here that you can select by clicking on this icon here. Some of these features are only going to be available when you upgrade to a paid plan. So you'll see it has this icon here, and if I click on that, I'll have to upgrade to get access to these features. So if you want these advanced features, you'll have to upgrade, but just for a basic VPN connection to a random server using the method I explained in this video is already going to help you just have a little bit more privacy while browsing the web. We can also do a search on Google for what's my IP, and I can already see that Google thinks I'm browsing from the Netherlands. And if we go to whatsmyip.com, we can see the IP location is detected as Netherlands, meaning the VPN is working properly. So usually if you wanted to change servers, you can just disconnect and then connect once again. And in some cases, it might connect to a different server. But like I explained before, in the free version, you won't be able to select any country that you want to connect to. You'll have to upgrade for that. And if you want to upgrade, you can go ahead and do that. You can see the prices here, and obviously there's a lot of VPNs available these days. I just think ProtonVPN is one of the best. They just had an audit recently, and the audit found that they actually do adhere to the no logs policy, and they do protect your browsing data. In this video, I'm going to be showing you a paid software that you can use, which I think is overall the best shell replacement that you can get for Windows 11. And although it is a paid app, it's not expensive at all. And I'm going to be taking you through an entire walkthrough in this video. So the program I'm referring to is called StartAllBack, and it's what I use on both of my computers that's running Windows 11 since I've switched to Windows 11, because I just couldn't use the stock Windows 11 taskbar and start menu. So let's start by downloading StartAllBack, and you can get it from this web page, and then just click on download, and then you can click on open file so you can run the setup, and then you'll have to go through the setup wizard. So you can either install it for the current user that you're logged into, or you can install it for all users on the computer. I'm just going to install it for all of the users on the computer and then accept this user account control prompt. And then you'll have to go through the StartAllBack configuration. So let's go through each of these. If we select proper 11, which is the default, you'll have this rounded start menu here. And if you click on these flyouts here in the system tray, you're going to have the Windows 11 menus. Also, if you open the File Explorer, you'll still have the Windows 11 command ribbon up here. If you select kinda 10, then it changes the taskbar to the Windows 10 version. And then again, if you click on these flyouts here, it's going to open the Windows 10 menus for some of these items here. You can see the notifications didn't change, but the others have changed. And then if we click on the start button, we have a classic start menu, but with sharp edges. It's not rounded like the proper 11 version is. And then if we use the remastered 7, you can see that you have the Windows 7 start button with a start menu that resembles the look of Windows 7. And then if you click on these flyouts here, you'll have the Windows 7 flyouts for these items here in the system tray. Now, the way I have it set up on my computer is to use the proper 11 version, but then to go and set some of these settings manually to my preference that I like to use. First off, you can go to the Start Menu tab here, and then you can choose if you want to use this classic Start Menu. So if I switch that off, you'll see it's going to open the Windows 11 Start Menu. I don't like the Start Menu at all, so I'll use the classic Start Menu. And this is basically the classic shell or open shell Start Menu, but the StartAllBack developer, he made his own themes and changes to these Start Menus here. So you can change the visual style to the default. You can change it to plain 8, which is that menu, or to Windows 7, which is the other one I showed you earlier. I'll just leave that on the default. And then you can change the icon size to small icons, medium icons, or large icons. I changed this to small icons. Then for the all programs list, you can use large icons. You can display it as a flyout menu like in Windows XP. So if you click on all programs, it's going to open this menu here. If you deselect that checkbox there, then it's going to open the all programs list there. I like to have it set that way. And then for the rest of these settings here, you can see all of the stuff that you can change, but I normally just leave these settings on the default. But I just want to show you this so you can see all of the options that you have control over and how you can change the start menu and customize it so you can build a start menu that you like. Now, if we go to Taskbar, this is probably the main reason why I like using StartAllBack, because the free programs that I've had a look at on this channel in the past few videos didn't give me exactly what I wanted with regards to the taskbar. So what I like to do is to have it as small as possible, like that. And I also set the icon margins to the smallest as possible. Now, I know this might not be for everyone, but I'm showing you what I normally do. Then you have the option of changing the start button icon. I like the normal Windows 11 icon, so I leave that selected. So one of the reasons I like StartAllBack is to make the taskbar small. The second thing is you can change the location of the taskbar, which I like to have at the top. And the reason I like to have it at the top is because most of the time in Windows, we spend time in the browser and we're navigating tabs here at the top of the screen. So it's just much easier to navigate to the top of the screen here and get to icons and the start menu that I want to access, as well as the system tray icons here, compared to having the taskbar at the bottom of the screen and then moving the mouse all across the screen. That's just my personal preference, and you can leave a comment down below telling me how wrong I am and how bad that actually is. I don't care. That's the way I like to use my computer, and you can use your computer the way that you like. Now, another thing that I like with regards to the taskbar styling here is to turn on dynamic transparency, and that makes the entire taskbar completely transparent. Now you also have some other options here, like combining the taskbar buttons. You can always combine them and hide the labels as well, only when the taskbar is full or never. And if you set it to never, then you'll have these labels on the taskbar icons. I always hide the labels. I don't like to have it centered in the screen here, so I leave that off as well. And then you have the option of segmenting these taskbars here. I don't like that either, so I just leave that turned off as well. Now, if we have a look at the tray icons here, which are the system tray icons here, you can choose the flyout style. So you can have the Windows 11 flyouts, or the Windows 10 flyouts, or the Windows 7 flyouts where it's possible. I like to have the Windows 10 flyouts selected, where I have this soundbar and that network icon there. But you also have the option of changing this to Windows 7, and it'll use the Windows 7 flyouts for these icons where it's possible. I'm going to leave that on Windows 10, but now you have some more options here where you can turn the system icons on or off. So first off, for the taskbar, if you wanted to enable the search icon, if I click on that icon there and I enable the search box, you'll see that I have the search icon here. I always have that hidden, but I just wanted to show you that you can change that here. It's the same with the task view button, and it's also the same with the widgets. I don't use any of that, so I just leave that unselected. And then you have some other options here. So for example, you've got the language switcher. If I click on that and set it to off, you can see that the language switcher has now disappeared. And it's the same if I go ahead and disable the action center or the notification pane, then the notification icon is also hidden. Now you can do that with all of these other options here as well. If you wanted to hide these icons here, you can turn off the other system tray icons and you won't see those as well. But I just leave that set to on. And if you want, you can just select this setting here, which will always show all of the app icons without hiding it with this arrow here. So I'm going to leave that selected. Then if we go over to the Explorer section, you can use the Windows 11 command bar, the Windows 10 ribbon, or the Windows 7 command bar. Now that is the File Explorer here. So if I set this to the Windows 10 ribbon UI and we reopen it, you'll see that is the Windows 10 ribbon, which is what I like using. But you can also use the Windows 7 command bar, which is just this File, Edit, View, and Tools option here. So I like to have this set to Windows 10. Then you can have this mica effect on top. You can use the classic search box, new icons, and the new icons is basically what's added with StartAllBack. If I disable that and then open the File Explorer again, this is like the classic Windows 10 icons. But I think the new icons look pretty good, so I always leave that enabled. Now you can use the classic context menus, which is referring to this right-click menu here. You can restore the control panel applets, which is basically if you go to control panel and you, for example, choose system, it's going to take you to the old system page and it won't redirect you to the Windows 11 settings. Then you have this option to colorize everything with the accent color in Windows, which is what I like to have selected as well. Now you might see that although the taskbar is transparent, as soon as I click on the start button, it uses the accent color of the light theme of Windows. So if I go and I enable the dark theme in Windows, I change this to dark, then you can see it's transparent until I click on the start menu, and then it changes it to the accent color or the background color that I have selected here. If we go to the advanced section, if you wanted to, you can also use a custom start menu color and custom taskbar color. And if you select these options, you can also choose between clear, blur, and acrylic. So one of the things you can do here is to select both of these items and then change this setting to clear, for example, which will basically give you this see-through type of start menu here. For this video, I'm just going to deselect that and then use the previous version that I had here. Then you also have some other settings here where you can store and display recently opened programs and display recently opened items, which are these settings in the start menu here. Now, if you go to the About page here, this is where you can enter a license key. And as you can see, you get 100 days where you can use StartAllBack for free. So 100 days is plenty of time for you to test out this program and see if it will work for you. Like I said, I've been using it for a month now and I haven't had any issues with it yet. So if you want to use StartAllBack as a shell replacement on Windows 11, you can go ahead and you can try it out for yourself. And if you're wondering how to get back to the StartAllBack settings, you can right click on the taskbar and then select Properties, which will take you back to this configuration, or you can go to the control panel and then you'll have this StartAllBack entry here that you can select, and then you can also get back to the settings that way. I don't know if you knew about this, but you can actually customize the context menu in Windows, or the right-click menu as it's more commonly referred to. You can add custom items to it and change the way that it looks, and it's actually quite easy too. Now you probably already know this, but the context menu in Windows 11 isn't exactly user-friendly, and it's one of the many things people hate about the stock Windows 11 experience. I mean, as you can see here, Microsoft replaced some of these options with icons, and to get access to the old context menu, you need to click on the Show More Options button here, and that just annoys me. But that's why we have Shell, a powerful, highly customizable, free and open source context menu manager for Windows. The best part is that it works on older versions of Windows too, so if you're still using Windows 10, you can use Shell to create your own custom context menu too, and that's exactly what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So let's start by downloading and installing Shell. So to do that, you can visit nilesoft.org in your browser of choice and then just click on the download button here and you'll be taken to the downloads page. Now you'll have a few different options. You can either click on the download button here to download the installer, or you can use one of these package managers to install it. Now I would suggest that you take a look at these commands because this website seems to go down from time to time, so you won't be able to download the installer. In that case, you can run PowerShell as an administrator on your PC and then just use one of these commands to install Shell. For example, you can execute this winget command and that'll automatically download and install Shell to your computer. But if you choose to download the installer like I'm doing here, you can just run it, go through the normal installation prompts, and then once it's finished, you'll have Shell installed with the default theme, which is what you see here. So right now, it doesn't look any good though, does it? I mean, you can see from the taskbar that I have dark mode enabled, but the context menu is still white for some reason. But don't worry, I'll show you how to fix that soon. For now, let's just see what's changed. So you'll probably notice that Show More Options is now gone and I have access to all of the normal context menu functions, but there are a few other ones added too. For example, I have this terminal menu here where I can launch PowerShell or CMD. I have this File Manage menu with a few very handy shortcuts like copying an entire file path, showing file extensions and hidden files and folders and so on. Then finally, I have this Go To menu with a bunch of shortcuts to folders and settings in Windows. But my favorite here is the All Control Panel item shortcut, which takes you directly to the All Tasks menu where you have access to a whole bunch of very useful utilities and settings in Windows. Now that's just a basic overview of what the standard installation of Shell does, but we can do so much more with it. For example, we can add or remove items from the context menu, we can change the theme and make it look real nice, and we can even add new functions, and this is all explained in depth by the developer over at nilesoft.org/docs in case you want to have a look at that. So to edit the context menu, you can press and hold left shift on your keyboard and then right click on the taskbar. You should also see a shell option like I have here, and you'll see if I move the mouse cursor to it, I have access to all of these other options here. The one I'm interested in for now is this directory option here. So I'm going to click on that and it will open the folder where Shell is installed and more importantly, where the config files are located. Now you can open and edit the config files with any text editor like Notepad or Notepad++ for example, but what I'm going to be using is Cursor, which is a free code editor, but you can use whatever program you want. The primary configuration file is this shell.nss file here, so I'm just going to open that with Cursor. Now you'll see these lines of code here, and what I want to show you is at the bottom here you have these import commands, which imports other config files into the main shell.nss config file. Those config files are located in the imports folder that you see here on the left in the shell directory. So let's say that I want to remove the terminal menu from the context menu, for example. In that case, I can just delete this line of code here, which imports the terminal configuration file. Now, after removing that entry, I'll just save the file by pressing Ctrl and S. And before you'll see the changes, you need to restart the Windows Explorer process. But a quick way to do this with Shell is to just press and hold down Ctrl on your keyboard and then right click. It'll refresh the context menu and now you'll see that the terminal menu is removed. It's no longer a part of the context menu. So you can go ahead and remove the other config files as well if you don't want access to those shortcuts, but you still want to use the themes that Shell provides. But we'll get to customizing the themes a little bit later on in the video. So like I mentioned earlier, we can also add our own entries to the context menu. As an example, let's add an entry that launches the browser and another one that launches the calculator. To do that, at the end of this file here, I'm going to add this command. I'll also include this command in my written guide on my website, and I'll have a link to that in the description of the video. So then you can just go ahead and copy and paste the command from there. But basically this command just adds a new item to the context menu, and now we have to fill in these blanks. So I'm going to give it a title of browser because it's going to launch the browser. And now we need to tell this command where to fetch the image or icon that must be displayed on the context menu and what application it must launch. So to do that, I'm going to right click on my browser icon here and then select properties. That's going to give me the full file path for the executable file that launches my browser. So now I can just copy that and then paste it into the image tag as well as the CMD or command tag. Now if I save the config file and then refresh the shell by holding down Control and right clicking like I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that I now have this browser entry here. If I click on it, it launches a new instance of my browser. But what if I wanted it to open a new tab in the browser window that I currently have open? Well, in that case, you can add the following command at the end here, which will always launch it to the specific URL you have defined here. So in this example, I'll just add the Google URL and then save the file again. Now, if I use the browser shortcut in the context menu, it actually launches a new tab in the existing instance of the browser that's already open. And that takes me to the Google homepage because that's the URL that I have defined in the config file. So that's one example of something you can add to the context menu, but let me show you how to add a Windows app like the calculator, for example. You can use the same syntax as before, and for the sake of time, I'm just going to copy and paste this command here and then save the file. Now you'll see I have an entry that launches the calculator. But the issue I have is that the calculator image or icon isn't being displayed on the context menu because there's an issue with my image command here in the config file. So there are basically two ways that you can go about adding images. One method you can use is to go to the Shell website and then go to the Glyphs tab. Next, find your preferred image. I'm going to use this calculator one for example, and then just copy the code. Now go back to the config file and paste the code next to the image field. But you have to take note that the quotes must be removed when using this method. It should just be image, the equal symbol, and then the code, no quotes. If I save the file and refresh the context menu, I now have that calculator icon or glyph showing on the context menu that I got from the Shell website. Now for method 2, you can add a custom image. So in this example, I'm just going to do a Google search for the Windows calculator icon and then download the PNG file from Wikimedia. Now what I'll do is I'll just navigate to the Shell installation folder and then just create a new folder here called images and then save the image inside of that folder. Then once it's saved, I can just navigate to that image file, right click on it and then copy the entire file path. Now I can paste that file path into the image section in the config file and just make sure that it's in between quotes again and then save the file. Now if I go ahead and refresh the context menu, you'll see that it displays that image as the icon next to the calculator entry. So this is basically just touching the surface of what you can do with Shell, and you can even add your own menus with submenus and a whole bunch of items, and we're definitely not going to be getting into all of that in this video. What I want to show you next is how you can change the theme of the context menu. Now to change the theme, you have to open the theme configuration file, which is saved here in the imports folder. So like I said before, Shell is highly customizable and there are a lot of things you can change, but I just want to show you a few of the basics I use to make the context menu look nice. For starters, to change it from this white menu to a dark one, just make sure that this dark value is set to true. Now you'll see if I refresh the context menu, it looks so much better already, and you can basically just leave it like this if you're happy with the way it looks. But there are some more things we can do and I want to show you that too. For example, we can define a custom color by using a hex code. So as an example, I'm just going to copy and paste this hex code, which is for the color blue. Now I'll also need to change the opacity value here, so I'm just going to change it to 90. If I save the file and refresh the context menu, you'll see it's blue. Now you can play around with the opacity. You can change the value to anything between 0 and 100. So if I change it to 30 for example, you'll see that it's a bit more transparent. But for now, I'm just going to change the color value back to default so it matches the system theme a little better. Now Shell includes a few predefined effects, so let me show you those quickly. If I change the effect value to 1 and the opacity to 0 and then refresh the context menu, you'll see that it's completely transparent now. So effect 1 makes the context menu completely transparent, provided you have the opacity set to 0 as well, and this is what it will look like in that case. Now if I change the effect value to 2 and still leave the opacity on 0 and then refresh the context menu, you'll see that it's added a blur effect. Personally, I like this a little bit more than the completely transparent menu because it makes the text on the menu a little bit more visible. But I know there are some of you who wants the menu to be completely transparent, and in that case you can use effect value 1. But some other things I want to show you are the following. At the top here, just below the dark entry, you can add a font size command. If I set this to 30, for example, you'll see that the context menu is now huge because the font has increased. If I set this to a very small value, like 5 for example, you'll see that the context menu is very small. Now, I don't usually use the font size setting, but another one you can use is the font name setting. If you set the font name to a font you have installed on your system, and I'll add that in between quotes, otherwise it won't work, you'll see that the font on the context menu has changed. So you can change the font if you want to with this command here, but I'm just going to remove this and then save the file, which will set it back to the default system font. Now the last setting I want to show you here is the view setting. If you change the view to compact, like I'm doing here, you'll see I have a much more compact context menu, and I know a lot of people will prefer to have it like this because it doesn't take up as much space on the screen. But if you don't want to use this setting, just remove it and then save the file. So this is basically what my shell theme config file looks like, and it makes the context menu look like this. Now at the time of this recording, this is what I like using, but who knows, it might change in the future. But once you're happy with your shell config and you like the way that it looks, what I recommend you do is you can either just make a backup of these config files that you changed and save them in your documents or another important file that you'll remember to back up before formatting your PC, or you can just make a backup of the entire shell folder to a directory that you'll remember to back up before you format your computer. In that case, you won't have to edit these files every time you do a clean install of Windows. You can just copy your config files back into the shell installation folder, and then you'll have your custom context menu again. Now it's also worth mentioning that you can download pre-made theme config files and then just copy and paste them into your shell folder, and this GitHub user is one of those people who makes these themes. And you can also visit the shell forum where there are some pre-made theme files that you can download and use. The software that we're going to be having a look at today is called Windhawk. And Windhawk is basically like a modding interface where you have a collection of customizations that you can add to Windows and some programs. So we're going to be downloading it and I'll show you how to use it in this video. To download it, you can just visit this webpage here and then click on download. And I'll obviously have this linked in the description of the video as well. It'll download the file. If you do get any prompts, just click on keep, so you can keep that file there. Then click on open file, and that's going to launch the Windhawk installer. You have a few options here. You can do a standard installation, which will install Windhawk for all users on the computer, or you can extract a portable version of Windhawk. And in that case, all the configuration data will be stored in the application folder, and no information is going to be written to the registry of the computer. Now for this video, I'm just going to use the standard installation method. If you do get any prompts, just click on yes. I'm going to leave the default selected here, but you can also change that if you want. Then just click on next, and then it's going to start installing and downloading any necessary dependencies that's needed for it to run. Then once it's finished, you can run Windhawk, and I'm just going to click on finish, and then it should open automatically. So this is what the interface looks like. You can click on the Explore tab up here to browse for more mods. And here you can also see the mods are basically listed from the most popular to the least popular, or with the most amount of users to the least amount of users. There's a few of these mods that I want to show you in this video specifically because we're having a look at replacing the taskbar and start menu on Windows 11. So let's start with the taskbar height and icon size mod. You can click on the details of this mod and then you can click on install. These mods are all open source and you can see that it's verified by this GitHub user here. So I'm just going to click on install here and it's then going to install that mod. So once it's installed, you can go to the settings tab here inside of Windhawk, and then you have control over the settings. What this specific mod allows us to do is to change the icon size, the taskbar height, and the taskbar button width. If we go to the details tab here, you can see this is basically what the taskbar looks like if you have these settings here, like it's listed below each of these screenshots that they have here. But for this example, let's change it to the small taskbar size, which is an icon size of 16 and a taskbar height of 34. So the icon size was 16 and the taskbar height was 34. I'm going to leave the taskbar button width on 44, but I'm guessing we're going to change that afterwards as well. If I click on Save Settings, you'll see that the taskbar has changed now, and it's a lot smaller compared to the default Windows 11 taskbar. If we change the taskbar button width, if I change that to 20, for example, and save the settings, you'll see that Explorer needs to be restarted. So you'll need to click on yes for those changes to take effect. But now the buttons are much closer to each other. So this is a small taskbar with small taskbar buttons. Basically, you just have these 3 settings that you can set and customize the taskbar size and icons. Now, if you want to undo this, you can click on the disable button here. And as you can see, it's basically bugged out now, but that's because we need to restart File Explorer. And to do that, I'm just going to open the Task Manager and then find the Windows Explorer process on here and then restart the task. And then you'll see the Windows 11 taskbar is now back to default. If you tested out the mod and you don't want to use it, you can just disable it, or you can completely remove it from Windhawk. And I'm going to remove this mod from Windhawk just as an example to show you. And then we can go back and explore the other mods again. So one of the other popular mods here is the taskbar volume control. So if you click on the details and we install this mod here, what this allows you to do is you can basically just hover your mouse over the taskbar and then use your scroll wheel to scroll up or down, and that's going to change the volume of Windows. So that's a nice quality of life thing to have in Windows, and this works wherever you have the mouse on the taskbar. You can even have it over an icon and then change the volume without having to click on the flyout menu here and then change the volume here. You'll see if I disable the mod and then hover my mouse over the sound icon here and move the scroll wheel up and down, you can see that the volume is changing, and that's a default feature in Windows 11, but the mouse cursor has to be over the sound icon like I have it now. It won't work if you just hover it over the taskbar, but that's what this mod is for here. You can just hover it over the taskbar and then scroll up or down to change system volume. I'll leave that installed for now. Then the next thing we can have a look at here is the Windows 11 Start Menu Styler. So let's go ahead and install that. Now, as you can see, we should also check out the Windows 11 Taskbar Styler and the Windows 11 Notification Center Styler, which you can use with this mod here. But basically, this mod allows you to add themes to the Windows 11 Start menu. So you have the No Recommended section. Basically, this removes the recommended section. So if you didn't know, it's really hard to get rid of this recommended section here. You can't actually get rid of it completely using the stock Windows 11. If you go to the personalization settings and you go to the Start button, you can basically turn off these settings here, and then you'll see that it just says the recommended section has been turned off, but it still takes up all of the space on the Start menu here, and you can't get rid of it. So as an example, if we go to Settings and we select the No Recommended section theme and we click on Save Settings and I open the Start menu now, the recommended setting is completely gone. And judging by the screenshot here, you can see that you can fill up the entire Start menu with pinned icons if you want to pin all of your apps to the Start menu. Now you also have some other options here, like a side-by-side Start menu. And instead of looking at all of these screenshots here, let me actually show you what each of them looks like. So I'm just going to change the theme to the side-by-side theme and then save the settings again. Now if we open that, we have the pinned icons here. We have the recommended section, which has been turned off. And then we have this all apps list here, which isn't possible in the stock Windows 11. Then there's also a side-by-side 2 setting where it basically has the all apps list here on the left and then the pinned apps on the right, but you still have the recommended section here, which isn't removed in these themes here. Taking a look at the other themes, we have a side-by-side minimal. So let's go ahead and save that. And this actually represents Windows 10 a lot better, where you have all of the apps here on the left and you only have the pinned icons here on the right with no recommended section. In my opinion, so far, this is the best Start menu that we've looked at now. If we have a look at some of the other themes, like the translucent Start menu, we can see that the Start menu now has a translucent effect. There's also no recommended section, which is really good. And you can also go to all apps. So this is a nice option for those people who want to have a translucent Start menu. If we go back to the other themes, we've got a Fluent to Inspired. If we go ahead and save those settings, this is like a Fluent theme, which is a lot like the Windows 11 stock start menu, but again, we don't have the recommended section, which is really good. Another theme that we have at the time of this recording is the Windows 10 theme, and this actually looks quite good as well, with a bunch of pinned apps, and you can also unpin these apps from the start menu and pin your own apps to the start menu. Another theme is the Windows 11 Metro 10. This also looks like Windows 10 inspired menu with pinned apps and then the recommended section. I've got to be honest with you, the one I liked the most is the side-by-side minimal start menu, which is this one here. If there's a theme that has the side-by-side minimal start menu with the translucent theme, I think that's what I would be using if I were using Windhawk as my main shell replacement for Windows. But I actually use another program that I'll be discussing in a future video, so keep an eye out for that. But that's it for the Windows 11 Start Menu Styler. So I'm going to leave that enabled, but let's also have a look at the Taskbar Styler and the Notification Styler mods. We have the Windows 11 Taskbar Styler, and here we have a collection of themes like the Windows XP theme, a Bubbles theme, a Translucent theme. Now, judging by these screenshots, I won't actually be using any one of these themes here. Maybe we can check out the Translucent Taskbar just as an example. And I'm just going to install this mod just so we can see what it looks like. So if we go to the Settings tab and we select a theme, let's just look at the Translucent Taskbar. And I'm guessing it's going to be best if you use the translucent theme for the start menu with the translucent taskbar, so then everything has this translucent look to it. I'm just going to leave it on the minimal start menu, and then I'm also going to remove the taskbar theme. This is all personal preference. If there's one of these themes that you think you might like, then go ahead and try out Windhawk for yourself. I mean, we can even try out the Windows XP taskbar theme. Now, this aims to recreate the Windows XP taskbar, but it's not the same as RetroBar. RetroBar does a better job of that, in my opinion, and you can go ahead and have a look at that video if that's something you're interested in. But for now, I'm just going to remove this Taskbar Styler mod. Now, you also have a Taskbar Clock mod, a Taskbar Labels mod, and a whole bunch of others. Then you can add this mod where you can use your middle mouse button to close an item on the taskbar, which is quite handy to have. As you can see, there are a ton of customizations that you can do here. You can also have the classic Explorer navigation bar. And this is also something we covered in a previous video with Explorer Patcher, where you can change this command ribbon here to the Windows 10 Classic ribbon, and that's something I like having, so I'll install that mod. So if we go to Settings and we change it to the Classic ribbon, then we have the Classic Windows 10 command ribbon. So that's something I like having in Windows 11, so I'm going to leave that enabled. And then another thing we can have a look at is the Windows 11 Notification Center Styler. And basically this allows you to add the translucent theme to the notification pane. So I'm not going to be looking at that in this video, but if you want to use the translucent taskbar and start menu, then you can also add that. So everything has that translucent look. Now, like I said before, Windhawk has a lot of different mods that you can add to Windows, and going through every single one of them in this video is just going to take way too long, and I'm not going to do that. But I've had a look at what I wanted to have a look at, and that is the Start Menu Styler, which gave me this start menu right here, and then also the taskbar height and icon size. I think I'll enable that as well and just install it again, because I'd like the taskbar to be a little bit smaller, so I can maybe change this to 20. I'm just going to use these settings here, then restart File Explorer. So I like this taskbar and start menu change. And then the other thing that I also like is the File Explorer change, where I have the Windows 10 command ribbon here. The only other thing that I would still change here is to align the start menu to the left of the screen, and then also disable the widgets so I don't have that. And that'll leave me with Windows 11 looking like this, with a start menu that in my opinion is much better than the stock Windows 11 start menu. Now, with regards to Windhawk, if you click on the home button, you can see all of the mods that you have installed here, and you can easily enable or disable any mods that you've installed here. Some of the changes will be immediate, and the other changes you'll have to restart the Windows Explorer process for that to take effect. But basically you'll have the stock Windows 11 options back after doing that. But if you wanted to enable any of these mods again, you can just do that by clicking on these sliders here, and it'll bring back the changes that you made earlier. and Windhawk will run automatically every time you launch your computer. You won't have to come and enable these settings every single time you launch Windows. Windhawk will just be running in the background. And if we have a look at the task manager here, it doesn't use a lot of resources at all because it basically just overrides the shell with a bunch of registry entries and some other stuff. But right now in total, it's not even using 3 megs of RAM. So it really shouldn't give you any performance issues in Windows. So it is a very good option to use in Windows 11 if you want to change the taskbar, start menu, or any of those other hundreds of tweaks that you can get by exploring these mods inside of Windhawk here. Now, like I showed you before, one of the methods to remove these options here is by clicking on remove, so you can remove the mods. But if you want to install Windhawk altogether, you can do that by going to the installed apps on your computer, and you'll find Windhawk as one of the installed programs, and you can just go ahead and uninstall it from your computer. And then you'll also have the option of removing the program settings, which you'll want to do if you don't want to use the mods anymore. You have to remember that the mods won't work if you don't have Windhawk installed anyways. So you can just remove all of those settings as well if you don't plan on reinstalling Windhawk again on the same computer. And then you'll have Windows 11 back to the standard settings. If I have a look at the File Explorer, you can see that the Windows 11 command ribbon has also been restored. Now in this video, we're going to be having a look at TranslucentTB, which is basically used to make the taskbar translucent or transparent in Windows 11. So on Windows 10, you can just do this with some simple registry entries, but on Windows 11, that's no longer possible. And you need to use a program like TranslucentTB to make the taskbar transparent in Windows 11. Now, I've also made another video on this channel where I showed you how to make the taskbar transparent with Windhawk, which is a software that you can use to mod Windows 11. And I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below, as well as the playlist where I show you how to replace the shell in Windows 11 with a bunch of free programs. So you can go ahead and look at that if you're interested. But in this video, I'm going to download TranslucentTB and install it on this version of Windows 11. And it's pretty funny that start is spelled that way. But let's start the download, and that's going to download an MSIX bundle package where you can then click on open file. Then you'll have this option to install TranslucentTB. Now you can also get this from the Microsoft Store directly. I'm just downloading it directly from their website, but I'm just going to go ahead and click on install. And it's also going to launch it automatically. Now, if we have a look at this welcome screen here, you can donate to these developers, or you can join their Discord server, or you can edit the configuration file. But for now, let's just click on continue. And as you can see, TranslucentTB lives in the system tray. So we're going to get to those settings now. But you can see that the taskbar is already completely transparent. Even if you open the start menu, the taskbar still stays completely transparent. So if I go ahead and show the hidden icons in the system tray here, we'll find TranslucentTB. And if I click on that, it's going to give me some other options here. So if we have a look at this first tab here, which is the desktop tab, we can show the taskbar border, which basically gives us this line here. And I definitely don't want to show that. I'm going to hide that. If we go back to the settings, we can choose more options here. So if I set this to opaque, it basically turns it completely black, if that's something you want to use. Clear, we've already seen, and then acrylic is basically this taskbar, which is kind of see-through, but it's blurred, if you want to call it that. Let's leave it on clear, so it's completely transparent. So obviously you have some other options in TranslucentTB here, and I'm not going to be going through each of them in this video here. One of the settings you can just have a look at is if it should open at boot, which basically means every time you start up your computer, TranslucentTB should launch automatically. So it basically turns the taskbar transparent without you having to do anything. Something I want to have a look at is if I can use OpenShell to make the start menu transparent as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and download OpenShell from the GitHub page here. And I've used OpenShell a few times in the previous videos in this playlist as well, where I basically replaced the shell of Windows 11, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm not going to be going through step by step in this video. You can go ahead and watch those videos if you're interested in seeing OpenShell, but it's basically just a start menu replacement where you can get older versions of the start menu in previous versions of Windows on Windows 11. So I normally have it set to this Windows 7 style, but if we right click on the start button and then select settings, that's going to take us to the OpenShell menu settings. And right now I've got the Windows Aero skin selected. So one of these options here is to reduce the glass color, and I want to see what that looks like. So that basically just turned the start menu black or gray. I'm not sure if there is a skin that'll cause the start menu to be completely transparent. We have some transparency settings here in the immersive skin. So if I go ahead and select that, it's definitely not translucent. If we set that to full glass, it's definitely not transparent either. If we go to show all settings and we have a look at the menu look, if we scroll down, I have this option to override the glass color. And if I set that to white and then reduce the glass opacity to 0, I'm interested to see what that looks like. And that basically just gives us a gray start menu. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like OpenShell can give me a fully transparent start menu, but I'll just leave Windows Aero selected, and I guess it does have some sort of see-through element on the right here. And like I mentioned before, I can also use Windhawk and use the start menu styler in Windhawk to get a transparent start menu. And I'm actually going to go ahead and have a look at that. I'm actually going to have a look at downloading Windhawk in this video as well, just so we can see what it looks like with the TranslucentTB application installed. And like I mentioned before, I already have a dedicated video made specifically for Windhawk. And there is a mod in there that also turns the taskbar transparent. But I just want to have a look and see if TranslucentTB works with Windhawk, and specifically the start menu styler that Windhawk has. So I'm just going to run Windhawk. Then the mod I'm looking for is the Windows 11 start menu styler. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and then install it. Then I'm just going to go to settings, and the theme I'm going to be selecting is the translucent start menu. And then I'm going to save these settings. So now if we open the start menu, we have a translucent start menu with the transparent taskbar. But the thing is, the taskbar is completely transparent and the start menu still has this sort of blur look to it. So it's not completely transparent or translucent like the taskbar is. And if I go ahead and I exit TranslucentTB so that I have the normal Windows 11 taskbar, and I go ahead and install the taskbar styler mod, and then I'm going to select the translucent taskbar theme and save that. You can see it does not do the same thing as the actual TranslucentTB application, and it just makes the taskbar and start menu have a translucent look, but it's not completely clear. In my opinion, I think this is more of an acrylic look. If we go ahead and we launch Translucent Taskbar again, TranslucentTB, and it seems I need to restart the computer before I can use it. So let's just go ahead and do that. As you can see, the TranslucentTB taskbar is completely clear and completely see-through. If I switch it to acrylic, this basically resembles the translucent taskbar that Windhawk has as a theme. So TranslucentTB with the clear theme gives you a completely transparent taskbar, and even if you take windows and you put it behind the taskbar, you can still see what's inside of those windows as well. And it is the best app on Windows 11 to get a transparent taskbar or a completely see-through taskbar. I would have liked if OpenShell had some sort of completely transparent taskbar as well, but using OpenShell with TranslucentTB is also fine. And if you wanted to use TranslucentTB in conjunction with Windhawk and then have the translucent start menu, which looks like this, where the recommended section is also removed, you can go ahead and do that. And this is basically what your Windows 11 installation would look like. Now in this video, I'm using a stock version of Windows 11. I'm not using a debloated version. And as you can see, it's got the normal taskbar here as well as the normal start menu. Now in this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can basically get the Windows 10 taskbar back on Windows 11. For that, we're going to be using a program called Explorer Patcher, and you can get it from the GitHub page here. And obviously, I'll have this linked in the description of this video as well. But basically, Explorer Patcher, it aims to enhance the working environment on Windows. So it has a whole bunch of different settings and properties that you can change. And I'm going to show you that in this video. So if we go ahead and we go to the Releases tab here on the right, and we go ahead and download the latest release. I'm just going to download the Explorer Patcher setup executable file here. And then once that's done, I'm just going to click on Open File, click on Yes, and then it's going to look like the computer's breaking for a little bit. It's going to eventually come back and you'll see that the taskbar has changed. You can see it's also downloading some new symbols. But basically you can see this isn't the Windows 11 taskbar anymore, it's the Windows 10 taskbar. If we go ahead and click on the Start button here, you can see it still opens the Windows 11 Start menu and it still opens it in the center of the screen. Now we're going to fix all that and I'm going to show you how to do that. So to get to the Explorer Patcher properties, you can right click on an empty space on the taskbar here and then you can click on Properties. Now you've got a ton of settings and stuff that you can change here. You can see you've got a taskbar section, you've got a system tray section, File Explorer, all of that. And we're going to be going through the most common settings in this video here. So for starters, if we look at the taskbar here, you can set the taskbar style to Windows 10 or Windows 11 if you wanted to use the Windows 11 taskbar, but with some of the other options and settings that you have in Explorer Patcher. For this video, I'm going to leave Windows 10 selected. Now, if you click on this first option here, it's going to open the taskbar settings in Windows 11, and you can obviously change the taskbar settings here as you would normally do. But you have some other options here. For example, you can customize the notification area icons. So if I click on that, it's going to open this window here, which resembles one of the older versions of Windows. Now, for example, we can change the icons that we see here in the system tray. So for example, VMware Tools, if I click on this hidden icons button here, you can see there's the VMware Tools, and I can also drag that out of the hidden system tray so it always displays here. You can see I have some other options here. I can basically hide the icon and its notifications. So I'm going to do that for the VMware Tools. You also have the option here to turn the system icons on or off. And this is basically the icons like the clock, volume, microphone, network, power, and all of that. So for example, the input indicator, the English version that I have here, which is my keyboard layout. If I click on that and I switch it to off, you can see it's immediately gone. So you can hide any of these options here. The same with the Action Center. If you wanted to switch that off, it basically gets rid of the notifications altogether. So I don't have the notifications there. And then click on OK, which will take me back to this screen here, where it seems I'll have to hide the VMware Tools again, and then click on OK and restart the File Explorer. It doesn't actually seem to be working, and this might be a bug in the software. If we go back to these settings here, you can see that the setting isn't actually changed. So this might be a bug. So you can customize the system icons, which we've already done. And then you have some options here for where you want the taskbar to be located. So you can choose a primary taskbar location, and you can basically change this to the top and then restart File Explorer, and it's going to be at the top then. But an easier way to do this is just to right click on the taskbar and then unlock the taskbar. You can see it's locked at the moment. And then you can click on this and then drag it to any corner of the screen, just like you would normally do on older versions of Windows. But I'm just going to select the bottom as it's the default. And then if you have secondary screens, you can also select where those taskbars must be located. So for example, on the primary screen, you could have it on top, and then on any secondary monitors, you can have it at a different location if you want that. For search, you can show the search box or the icon. As you can see down here, it's just changed to the icon, or you can hide it completely. You can choose to show or hide the task view button, which is this button here. If I deselect that, then it's going to hide the task view button. You can choose to automatically hide the taskbar. And if I click on that, the taskbar will be hidden until I go to it with the mouse. I'm just going to disable that for now. Then you've got the Start button style, which is on Windows 10 by default, which is this button here. You can change that to Windows 11. And before some of these changes are applied, you might have to restart your File Explorer, and you can just click on the File Explorer down here to do that. Now, as you can see, this isn't really the Windows 11 Start button as you would have on the normal taskbar, but it is changed and resembles the Windows 11 Start button more. Then you can choose where you want the primary taskbar to be aligned. So at screen edge is the default, but you can also change it to centered, which will put all of the icons in the center of the screen. You also have the option to center it with the Start button in the middle of the screen, which is basically the default Windows 11 taskbar style. I'm just going to change it back to the default, so it's at the screen's edge. And then you also have the same setting for any secondary monitors that you might have. And then you have the option for both primary monitors and secondary monitors if you want to combine the taskbar icons. So as you can see, these taskbar icons here, because they're open, it also displays the text. So if I change this to always combine, it's not going to show the labels anymore. It just shows the icon. and you can change the setting to whatever you want. And then lastly, you can change the taskbar icon size. Large is the default, and then small will make the taskbar even smaller. Let's just leave it on the default for now, and let's move on to the other options that we have here. So we've got the system tray tab. Now what I want to show you here is you have the option to show the seconds in the clock down there if that's something you want. You also have the control center button, which is this gear icon here, which basically opens the control center on Windows 11. Now what I like to do is I like to disable this, and like I said, you need to restart File Explorer for some of these changes to take effect. But you can see the gear icon is gone now. I've still got this VMware Tools icon here that's bugging out, but just ignore that for now. If we have a look at the rest of the settings here, you've got the Show Desktop button here, which is this corner of the screen. If you click on that, it's just going to take you to the desktop, and that is enabled by default. Here are some of the settings that I think are the most useful. So if you choose to open the network and internet settings, when right-clicking the network icon, it should open, and then you have a few options here. So it can open the settings app, it can open the network and sharing center and control panel, or it can open network connections and control panel. So by default, if you click on the network icon here, and you click on Open Network and Internet Settings, it's going to take you to the Windows 11 settings page. But you can change that to Open in Control Panel. So if we have a look at the option now, it's going to open the Network and Sharing Center in the control panel. And the other option here is to load network connections. So if we test it out again, it's going to take you directly to the network connections screen that you have in control panel. So this is really good if you don't like using the built-in Windows 11 settings. I normally like to have it open to the Network and Sharing Center. Then if we have a look at the other options here, when clicking these system icons in the system tray, you can choose what it should open. Now by default, it's all set to the Windows 10 flyouts here, except for the language switcher, which I've completely disabled earlier anyway, so I'm not going to be even looking at that. But as you can see, if I do a normal click on the network icon, it shows me the Windows 10 menu. The same with the calendar, or the clock as it's called here. This is the Windows 10 menu. This is not the Windows 11 menu. If I click on the sound button here, it also shows me the Windows 10 sound control menu here. Now you have different options. You can use the Windows 11 Control Center. You can use the Windows 11 Wi-Fi flyout menu. You can use the Windows 8 network flyout. If you go ahead and select that, this is what the Windows 8 network flyout looked like. I wouldn't want to use that. I'll just leave it on the Windows 10 flyout. But you also have the same options of opening it to control panel if you wanted to directly open to control panel just by left clicking on the network icon there. For the sound, you've got the Windows 7 flyout, which I know a lot of people preferred to have this sound menu here rather than the Windows 10 or Windows 11 flyout. I'll just leave the default Windows 10 selected. Then the same for the clock. You can set it to the Windows 11 calendar, which is this notification pane here, which I don't like using, or you can use the Windows 7 clock, which is this one here. Again, I'll just leave it on Windows 10, which is the default. And then for the battery, if you have a laptop, you can also change it to the Windows 7 battery flyout. Now moving on to the File Explorer section here. The File Explorer is obviously this app in Windows here. And as you can see, you've got the new Windows 11 command ribbon up here, which has all of these icons here. So you've got a lot of options that you can obviously set using the Explorer Patcher properties here. Now, if you want to use the File Explorer section, you need to register it as a shell extension. So you can just click on that and then click on yes. Now you can disable the Windows 11 context menu, which is the right-click menu. So if I right-click, this is the normal Windows 11 right-click menu. And then if I enable this setting and then restart File Explorer, I now have the normal right-click menu that you had in previous versions of Windows, like Windows 10, for example. You can enable the legacy file transfer dialog, and that's basically that screen that you see when you copy and paste files. You can use classic drive groupings in this PC. So if you navigate to this PC and you enable the classic drive grouping option and then restart File Explorer and navigate back to this PC, then you'll see it's changed to the older groupings where you have them listed according to the device. Then you also have the option to change the control interface, which is this command bar up here. So by default, the Windows 11 command bar is selected, but you can change this to the Windows 10 ribbon, for example. And again, you'll need to restart File Explorer. If I go ahead and open File Explorer, now I have the Windows 10 ribbon up here with all of these options here. I like this more than the Windows 11 command bar, so I'm going to leave that selected. But you also have the option to change this to the Windows 7 command bar, and I'll just show you what that looks like quickly. That's basically just having file, edit, view, and all of these settings, as you can see right there. I honestly think Windows 10 had the better command ribbon. Then for the start menu, like I showed you earlier, if you click on the start menu, it still opens the Windows 11 start menu, which is the default, but you can change the start menu to Windows 10. You can change where it should open, which by default is the center in Windows 11. As you just saw, it opens in the center of the screen here, but obviously I would want it to open at screen edge, which will then open to the left here. And you can see this is basically the Windows 10 start menu, and we can go ahead and unpin all of these tiles here and pin whatever we want to pin to that start menu here. I normally just unpin everything and just use this list to open the apps on my computer on Windows 10. But that's how you can get the Windows 10 start menu in Windows 11. Then you have some more options here with the number of frequent apps that you can show. You can show more tiles if you want. I just unpinned all of the tiles, so I'm not going to be using that. Then you have a corner preference here, which is not rounded on Windows 10 by default. Basically, you have these sharp edges here, but if you want, you can change that to rounded corners with a docked menu. And what that means is the corners here will just be rounded, but the menu will still be part of the taskbar. If you were to choose the option to have a floating menu, then you would have this gap between the taskbar and the start menu. And some people might prefer this and like it this way. I'll just leave the normal Windows 10 menu selected, which looks like that. Then you've got a display mode here, which is currently set to default. You can select start menu here, or you can select full screen start. If I select start menu, it basically is the same as the default, it seems like. But if you select full screen start and just allow that action, then you can actually get the old Windows 10 full screen start menu back on Windows 11. I don't like to use that, but it is an option if you want to use it. I'll just leave the default selected, which is the normal start menu. Then you can also change the app list option here. So if I hide that, you can see that there's going to be no app list. I'll have to click on this icon here to show the all apps, and then I can pin whatever I want to use to the start menu like you would in Windows 10. So you can either hide it or you can disable it completely. And if it's disabled, you won't have access to that list of all programs. You'll only have the pinned apps on this list here. Like I mentioned earlier, I like to have it displayed, and I normally just unpin all of the apps from the start menu and just use this list to open the apps. So that's basically it for the start menu. You've got some other options here with regards to the window switcher, which is this Alt-Tab menu here. By default, it's set to the Windows 11 Alt-Tab menu, but you can change this to Windows 10, Windows NT, or just a simple window switcher where you have a bunch of options with regards to the window switcher here. Honestly, I'll just leave that on the default, which is Windows 11. And then next we have a weather option here, and this basically is the news and interests widget that you can get, which is disabled by default, which is great. If you want to show the weather on the taskbar, then you can enable that, and then you have this option here to show the weather on the taskbar. I don't ever use the weather widget in Windows, so I'm just going to disable that. But if it's something you use, you can enable it and go through the settings and tweak it to your liking. We can go to the other tab here, which is basically a bunch of other settings which might be useful to you in Windows. Now, I'm not going to be going through every single setting. What I just want to show you is you have the option of disabling the rounded corners for application windows. So if I go ahead and select that and open the File Explorer, for example, you can see that the rounded corners are now gone. If I enable that again and open the File Explorer again, you can see that I have the rounded corners, and they were added in Windows 11. I'll leave that selected. Now, the other thing that I want to show you here is you can prevent the following control panel links from being redirected to the settings app. So if we were to do a search for the control panel and we open the small icons here, if, for example, I were to click on System here, it's going to open the Windows 11 settings app instead of the old control panel link. So if I changed this system or about page and then clicked on system, it's going to take me to the old system page that we used to have in previous versions of Windows. So you can select all of these if you wanted it to open the older versions of those pages in Control Panel. Then the Updates tab here is basically just the Explorer Patcher updates. You can click on Check for Updates here, and it will automatically download and install updates. And you also have some options here that you can play around with if you were to do that. If you click on the Settings button here, you can basically export all of these settings that you just set now to a file. So for example, let's just export these settings to the desktop, and that's gonna export it to a registry file. Then let's say you can save this file on external media, and if you ever reinstalled Windows and you don't want to go through the process of selecting all of these options again, you can just import the settings and then select your Explorer Patcher file that you exported. Click on yes, and then it's gonna import those settings. You'll probably have to accept some prompts like I did there, and then restart the file explorer. But you won't have to go through the process of selecting all of the settings again. It'll automatically be applied because you exported your current configuration to that file right there and then just imported it to the Explorer Patcher application here. Now you also have the option of restoring the default settings, and then if you decide that you don't want to use Explorer Patcher anymore, you can also uninstall Explorer Patcher from here, but you can also uninstall it normally via the Windows installed apps. As you can see, it's listed as a program, and you can just go ahead and uninstall it and it will be gone from your computer. Now, before I do that, I just want to show you that you can use OpenShell in conjunction with Explorer Patcher. And if you don't know what OpenShell is, it's basically a start menu replacement that was originally called Classic Shell, and you don't want to use Classic Shell anymore because it's outdated, but you can use OpenShell. And I just want to show you as an example, if we download the latest release from the GitHub page here, and we install OpenShell with Explorer Patcher on this computer here, and then click on the Start button, it's going to open a classic version of the Start menu. Now, normally when you click on the Start button the first time after you install OpenShell, you'll be greeted with this menu here where you can select a style for the Start menu, and then you can also select some different skins. I already had it set to Windows Aero, which is what I like using, and that basically gives you this type of Start menu here, which resembles the Windows 7 Aero theme. Now, you can also go ahead and pin any items to the Start menu here if you want, and it's going to show up at the top there exactly like it would on earlier versions of Windows. And if you're someone who wants to have the Windows 10 taskbar but with a Windows 7 type of start menu, then you can use OpenShell in conjunction with Explorer Patcher to achieve that. But like I showed you throughout this video, you can basically just use Explorer Patcher to get the Windows 10 taskbar, the Windows 10 start menu, the Windows 10 file explorer with these ribbons here, as well as the Windows 10 right-click menu or context menu on Windows 11. But regardless, I just want to show you that if you uninstall Explorer Patcher and you click yes, it's basically going to ask you to reboot your computer, and you'll have to do that to completely uninstall it. It's going to be the same with OpenShell, which I'll show you in a second here. So as you can see, after the restart, I've got the Windows 11 taskbar back. Now, if I click on the Start button now, it's still going to open the OpenShell menu because I haven't uninstalled that yet, but you can just go ahead and uninstall it like a normal program. You'll get a prompt that you need to restart your computer as well, but it won't restart automatically. You'll have to restart manually, but it'll still uninstall the OpenShell menu, and then you'll have the Windows 11 taskbar with the Windows 11 start menu back. In case you installed Explorer Patcher and OpenShell like I did in this video, and you want to get rid of it and use the normal Windows 11 start menu and taskbar, then you can remove the programs like I just showed you there. And obviously the file explorer will be back to the default Windows 11 state, but it seems the right-click menu is not reverted back to the Windows 11 right-click menu. If you like the Windows 11 context menu, then just keep it in mind. If you apply these tweaks like I showed you in this video, you might not be able to get the Windows 11 context menu back, although I think you'll just need to change some registry settings and then you'll get it back, but just keep it in mind. Now in this video, I'm using a stock version of Windows 11. I'm not using a debloated version. And as you can see, it's got the normal taskbar here as well as the normal start menu. Now the software that I want to show you in this video is called a RetroBar, and I'll obviously have all of this linked in the description down below. but RetroBar is a free app, and it basically brings back the classic Windows taskbars on modern versions of Windows. So basically you can get these old taskbars back from previous versions of Windows on Windows 7, 8, 10, and 11. So let's go ahead and download this. So I'm just going to go to the Releases tab here, and then we're going to scroll down, and then we're going to download the 64-bit version of RetroBar. But you also have a 32-bit and an ARM64 version. I've obviously got a 64-bit version, so I just downloaded that. Now RetroBar doesn't get installed on your computer. It's actually just an executable that runs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open another File Explorer tab and then navigate to the C drive because I want to save it somewhere where I'm not going to accidentally delete it. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click and drag this over to the C drive and then choose the extract option. And then you'll see it's going to be extracted to a folder on the C drive. So I'm just going to extract it right there. And then it's going to open the RetroBar folder on the C drive. So all you need to do now is just double click on this RetroBar application here. And then it should launch it. Because this is a fresh version of Windows 11, I don't have .NET installed. So I'm just going to go ahead and click yes to install that quickly. So .NET's finished installing. I'm just going to run this RetroBar application again. You can see that it's launching and that my taskbar has just changed to one of the old classic taskbars here. So I'm just going to minimize all of these windows so we can have a look at these settings. So obviously the taskbar has changed now, but if I go ahead and click on Start, you're going to see it's still the Windows 11 Start menu. So RetroBar does not replace the Start menu. It only replaces the taskbar, but we're going to have a look at the Start menu later on. If you want to use the Windows 11 Start menu with RetroBar, I recommend going to Settings. And then in the personalization settings here, you can just go to taskbar section and then you can go to taskbar behaviors and just change the taskbar alignment to the left. So if you click on Start now, it's going to open the Windows 11 Start menu here on the left of the screen. But like I said, we'll have a look at replacing the Start menu later on in this video. For now, let's look at what we can actually do with RetroBar. So if I go ahead and right click on an empty space here on the taskbar, I have a few options. I can launch the task manager. I can lock the taskbar, I can go to the RetroBar properties, or I can exit RetroBar, which will take me back to the Windows 11 taskbar. Now, the first thing I want to show you here is that the taskbar isn't locked. So what that means is I can just click anywhere on an empty space here on the taskbar and then drag it to any corner of the screen, and it's going to move the taskbar to that spot on the screen, just like in previous versions of Windows. Now, if you didn't know, you can't do this with the Windows 11 normal taskbar. You have to use some sort of third-party app to do this, and RetroBar is one of those applications that allows you to do this. So for now, I'm just going to lock the taskbar so it doesn't move. So let's go ahead and look at the other properties of RetroBar. If we just take a look at these real quick, you can see you can change the language. I'm just going to leave that on system. Here you can choose the theme, and by default it's set to Windows 95. But if we were to go and use Windows Vista Aero, you can see now we have the Windows Vista taskbar, but still with the Windows 11 Start menu. So basically there are a lot of themes here that you can use. If we wanted to go to the Windows XP Blue theme, there we have the Windows XP taskbar on Windows 11. Here you also have the option of choosing where you want the taskbar to be aligned. So if I select the top here, it would be aligned to the top. For this video, I'm just going to leave it on the bottom. Then you have the option to allow font smoothing, and up here you can see that it just makes the font look a little bit better. I'm just going to leave that enabled for now. Here you can also lock or unlock the taskbar. You can auto hide the taskbar if you want to have it hidden. Then you've got the quick launch here. Now the quick launch are these icons here next to the start button. And obviously if you've used older versions of Windows, you know exactly what this is. But it basically allows you to pin apps to the taskbar here, but it's different compared to Windows 10 and 11. Because in Windows 10 and 11, if you pinned a item to the taskbar and it was open, like the File Explorer for example, it would just open on the shortcut that you have pinned on the taskbar already. So if you want to add items to this quick launch menu here, you can't just right click on these items here and then add it to the quick launch menu. You don't have an option for that. But what you can do is you can navigate to your RetroBar folder where you have RetroBar saved. Then you can go ahead and you can create a new folder here and you can call it anything. I'm just going to call mine Quick Assist. And then inside of that folder, you can go ahead and drag and drop shortcuts into this folder here. So let's say that I wanted to pin the calculator, for example. I'm just going to go ahead and find the calculator on the list of apps, and I'm just going to drag it over to the folder here. and you can see it's going to create a shortcut for the calculator. Let's just go ahead and add another app as well. Let's use the Microsoft Store, for example. And these are just examples. The most important thing is you want to add the shortcuts of these programs inside of your Quick Assist folder. So if you go ahead and go back to the RetroBar properties and you click on select location, you can navigate to your RetroBar folder and then select the Quick Assist folder, because that's where the shortcuts are saved that you want to have on your quick access toolbar. So if I go ahead and click on select folder, you can see I have those items pinned on the quick access here. So if I click on the calculator, it's going to launch the calculator. If I click on the Microsoft Store, it's obviously going to launch the Microsoft Store. But now you'll see Edge and the File Explorer are missing. So let's just go ahead and add those as well. I'm just going to find the Microsoft Edge on this list here and then drag that over so I can create that link. And as you can see, it's updated in real time. It's already added Microsoft Edge there. And then for File Explorer, we can also just find that in the list of items and then drag it over. So I've got the File Explorer there, but I've got some sort of weird shortcut there, which is a desktop link. And I'm just going to right click on that and then delete it. I'm guessing that's just some sort of hidden desktop file that we couldn't see in the side of the folder here, but that got added to the quick access list. So basically that's how you can add items to the quick access menu here. And if we have a look at the other settings in the RetroBar properties, you can also show window previews, the thumbnails. So you'll see if I hover over these items here, it doesn't actually show me what's inside of it. So if I were to click on this option here and then hover my mouse over this, you can see it displays a preview of what's open in that window right there. Now, if we go over to the notification area here on the right, if you click on these options here, it still opens the Windows 11 flyout menu, and the same with the sound and the network. So that isn't changed. It's basically the same that you have with the start menu. It's only a taskbar replacement, but you have some options here where you can either show or hide the clock. You can show your input language. You can add the show desktop button. So if you click on that, it basically takes you directly back to the desktop. And you can also collapse the notification area icons, which basically just hides them. So you need to click on the arrow here so you can see all of the icons in the system tray. And then if you have that selected, you can also customize it and you can basically change the behaviors of these items. So if I wanted to hide OneDrive, I can click on this and I can just remove it so it's never shown. And you can do the same for any of these other entries that you have on this list here. And you obviously also have some other options that you can also select here. I'm just going to leave it like this for now. And then if we go to the advanced section, if you're planning on using RetroBar as a permanent replacement for the Windows 11 taskbar, you can select this option here so it automatically launches when you log onto your computer. You have the option to use software rendering here, which is disabled by default. So I'm just going to leave that disabled. You can also enable debug logging, which I'm also going to leave disabled because it's disabled by default. But if you want more info regarding these settings, I recommend just having a look at the GitHub page and then reading through all of the documentation that they have here. RetroBar can also check for updates automatically, so I'll leave that selected. Now you also have the option here to choose what the middle click action does, where it can either open a new instance, close the task, or do nothing. So if you were to use the middle mouse button and click on one of these options here, as you can see, it's opened a new window of the File Explorer because it's set to open a new instance, which is the default, I think, in all versions of Windows. But you can also close the task. So if I middle mouse click on this download button here, then it closes that window. You can also set this to do nothing if you want, but I'm going to leave it on close the task. Now you can invert the system icons, and by default it's set to when needed by theme, and I think you should just leave this setting selected as it is the default. But basically what this means is if we click on customize and I deselect this checkbox, you can see that the icon turned white, and if I select it again, the icon turned black again. Like I said, I would just recommend leaving this on the default, which is when it's needed by theme. Then you have some settings for multiple displays where you can show this taskbar on all of your displays. And then if you select this, you also have some options on where you want all of these tasks to be shown at. I'm just going to deselect it for this video. And then lastly, you have some options with regards to the taskbar scale. So right now 100% is selected, which is the default, but you can also increase this. So you'll see if I change this to 200, the taskbar has gotten huge. Now for the recording of this video, if I go to the display settings, I am using a scale of 125%, so it's even bigger than it would normally be. But I guess most of the time people will just be using 100% for the taskbar scale, unless maybe you have a very high resolution and it's hard for you to see the taskbar or click on it, then you can also just increase it. That's totally up to you and your personal preference. So that's basically all of the settings, but what I still want to show you is if we go to the themes here, you can add even more themes here, and I quickly want to show you how to do that. So if we go to the Tech Syndicate YouTube channel, which is where I initially saw RetroBar, so shout out to him. This guy actually created some dark mode RetroBar themes that he uploaded on DeviantArt. But if you actually go to his video here, you have the option of downloading it directly. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that also downloads a zip file. So if I go ahead and open that, and once again, I just put this beside my RetroBar folder here. If I go ahead and open this zip file here, there's going to be two folders, resources and themes. So if I just take these two folders and then extract them to the RetroBar folder, and we go ahead and close these folders. If we go to the theme section, you should see these themes here. And if you don't, just go ahead and restart your PC. Then once it's restarted, you can just go to the properties again. And then if you go to themes, you should now have the Tech Syndicate dark mode themes here. So as you can see, I've got dark mode Windows XP. So if we select that, we've got a dark mode Windows XP taskbar right here. And then he also created even darker versions, which is called the Midnight version. And it's got a shade of purple as well. So you can also use that if you're planning on using RetroBar. I just thought I'd mention that as well. But like you saw at the start of the video, the Windows 95 and 98 theme was the one that was selected by default. So I'm just going to leave that selected for now. Now what I want to show you next is what you can do with regards to the start menu here. A free program that you can use for the start menu is called OpenShell, and it's a fork of the original project called Classic Shell, which was last updated in 2017. So don't make a mistake and use Classic Shell, especially not on Windows 11 because it's not going to work properly. You want to use OpenShell. So I'm just going to go ahead and download the latest release of OpenShell as well, and then download the exe file. And unlike RetroBar, OpenShell is actually a program that gets installed onto your computer. So I'm just going to go ahead and install that on the computer quickly and then finish. And that's it for the OpenShell installation. We've got it installed now. Now, the very first time I'm going to click on Start Now, it's going to open a settings window. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Start. And you'll see it didn't open the Windows 11 menu. It opened the OpenShell settings. By default, it's going to be set to the Windows 7 style, but you also have some other options here, which is the classic with 2 columns and then the classic style, and you can see a preview of what it will look like here. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to use the Windows 7 style selected. And what I normally do is I just go to the skin tab, and then instead of using the immersive skin, I use the Windows Aero skin. So I'm going to select that. And if I click on the start button now, you'll see I've got a new start menu, which basically resembles the Windows 7 start menu. Now at the top here, you'll see if I click on this start menu, which is the Windows start menu, it's going to bring back the Windows 11 start menu. What you can do is if you don't want to use that, you can just right click on it and then unpin it from the OpenShell start menu here. And then you have all of these options. Now you can unpin these programs as well and remove them from this list. And then you can pin your own apps if you go to all programs. Let's say, for example, I wanted to pin Microsoft Edge. I can just right click on it and then I can pin it to the OpenShell start menu. So if I go back, Microsoft Edge will now be pinned on the start menu here. What's nice about this is you also have the option to go to the control panel items directly from this start menu here, exactly like you had it in the previous versions of Windows. And if I were to click on devices and printers, it actually takes you to the old devices and printers window, because normally the control panel in Windows 11 would take you to the new settings menu. So this also gets rid of that and just takes you directly to the old menus in Windows 11. So basically, if you're someone who's using Windows 11 or who's going to switch to Windows 11 and you want to have the experience of the old versions of Windows, then you can use these two programs in conjunction with each other to get that sort of experience on Windows 11. Now, something else I just want to show you is if you want to get back to the OpenShell settings, you can just go to the Start button and then go to All Programs. And then in the OpenShell folder, you'll have the OpenShell menu settings, which will take you back to this settings menu here. And you can click on this button here to show all of the settings that you can set. But like I said, OpenShell is highly customizable, and the point of this video wasn't really to show OpenShell. I just wanted to make you aware of RetroBar, but because it doesn't replace the Windows 11 start menu as well, I just wanted to show you OpenShell in case you weren't aware of that. If you want to reverse this entire process, the first thing you can do is you can just right-click on the taskbar and then click on Exit RetroBar. Then you can open the File Explorer. You can navigate back to the folder where you extracted RetroBar, and then you can just simply go ahead and you can just delete this folder because it's not a program that got installed on the computer. It's just an executable file that runs every time you start up your computer. Now, for the OpenShell menu, you'll see if I click on the Start button with the Windows 11 taskbar, it's still got the OpenShell menu. So if you wanted to, you can just use the OpenShell Start menu with the Windows 11 taskbar. But if you want to uninstall this, you can basically just go to the control panel, to Programs and Features, and then you'll have OpenShell listed as an installed program, and you can just go ahead and uninstall that. To completely remove OpenShell, you do need to reboot your computer. I'm just not going to do that for this video now. I'm just going to click on Cancel. But obviously you would want to reboot your computer. But you'll see if you did that, you'll have Windows 11 back to its default state with the Windows 11 taskbar as well as the Windows 11 Start menu. Today we're taking a look at UniGetUI, which honestly is one of the best free and open source apps you can get on Windows. And what it does is it's a graphical interface for your package managers. So package managers are things like Winget, Scoop, Chocolatey, Pip, npm, .NET Tool, and PowerShell Gallery, which basically uses the command line to install apps on your computer. Now, UniGetUI used to be called WinGetUI, and I have made videos on this software previously when it was still called WinGetUI, but in this video, I want to go ahead and take you through the download and installation, and then give you a quick overview and walkthrough of how you can use the software to basically maintain all of the other apps and software that you have installed on your computer and to keep it up to date without even thinking about it really. So to start off, you just have to note that you do need Windows 10 64-bit or Windows 11, which will also be 64-bit. And then the developer says that Windows Server 2022 and 2025 should work, but they are not officially supported. So as of the time of recording this video, just make sure that you have Windows 10 or Windows 11 and that you have that version number or higher for Windows 10. So to download it, you can get it from the website here, and there's a few different download options that you can choose from here. I'll have his official website linked in my written guide as well, that I'll have on my website, and you can find a link to that in the description of this video. But we're going to go ahead and choose the direct download here. So I'll click on that, which will then download the UniGet installer. Once it's done, just click on it to open it. I'm going to install this for all users. Then just select the language, and this should just be the same as any other setup wizard. You basically just go ahead and click on next, choose an install location. Then you can choose to perform a portable installation. I'm going to choose to perform a regular installation, and I suggest that you do the same and that you leave all of these options selected. You can click on next and then click on install, and it's going to start installing UniGetUI. And then once it's finished, we'll just go ahead and launch it as well. And then we can start having a look at UniGetUI. So this is going to be the main interface that you see here, where you can basically discover packages, which means you can search for software. So you can search for different apps that's available through Winget or Chocolatey, or any of those other package managers that we saw here before. These ones here that's mentioned on the website. So for example, let's search for WhatsApp. It might take some time to complete the search, but once it's done, you'll have a few results to choose from. So for example, here we have WhatsApp that we can download from the MS Store. So this is going to download it through Winget. So you can see the source that it's going to use to download the app that you selected. So just as an example, let's install WhatsApp in this video here. So I'm going to select that to install it with the Microsoft Store or using Winget. And once it's selected, I'm just going to click on Install Selected Packages. And you can see the status down here. So it's basically starting the WhatsApp installation. You can see it's busy installing, and it says that WhatsApp was installed successfully. So if we go and have a look at that and just do a search for WhatsApp, now I have WhatsApp on my computer. So that's just an example of how you can download and install an app using UniGetUI. But where the real power comes in is the software updates tab here. So UniGetUI is going to scan your computer for all the software that's installed on it. And it's also going to give you updates for that software if it's available through these package managers here. So as you can see, it's found a whole bunch of software updates, 22 to be exact. And now I have a few different options that I can choose from what I want to do with these apps here. So I can select all of these apps and then update all of the selected packages, or I can choose to ignore the selected packages. And then if you've ignored certain packages, you can then manage the ignored updates with this tab here. So I'm not going to update all of these apps in the video. Let's just use one as an example. I'm just going to update 7-zip. I'm going to click on update selected packages, and it's basically going to do the same thing that was done with WhatsApp. It's just going to download and install the latest update to the computer. And now you can see that 7-zip was updated successfully and it's disappeared from this list here. So UniGetUI is really useful for checking for outdated software and then giving you the next version that's available. So for all of these apps here, you can see it gives me the current version that I have and then the new version that's available. So you can see how out of date the app is, and then you can choose if you want to update the app. So for example, let's say that I don't want to update Discord. I can select Discord and then ignore selected packages. So in the future, it shouldn't prompt me to update Discord anymore, even if there's a newer version available than the one that was currently available when I ignored it. So if I wanted to undo that, I can just go to Manage Ignored Updates, and I can see that I ignored Discord. And if I just click on the trash can icon there, it should then put it back on the list here. And I'm guessing we just have to refresh this page and then Discord should appear again. So there we go. Discord appears on the list of packages that has software updates available. So the software updates here is one of the most useful features in UniGetUI because it really just helps you to see all of the installed apps on your computer that's out of date, and you can just select all of them or just the ones that you want to update and update them without any issue. Now, if we go to the installed packages tab here, this is where we can basically uninstall certain packages or programs from the computer. So for example, I'm just going to select PC Manager and I'm also going to select WhatsApp, and then I'm going to uninstall it. I'll get this prompt prompting me if I'm sure I want to do that. Just going to click on yes. And now it's going to queue both of those for uninstallation and then uninstall it from the computer. So now I won't have those apps installed on the computer anymore. If we go to the package bundles tab here, this is where you can basically create a bundle of packages where you can save the bundle and then import the bundle on another computer or on your computer once you've reinstalled Windows, which will make it much easier for you to just get a whole bunch of apps installed quickly and efficiently without having to go and search for every one of those apps individually. So just to give you a quick rundown of how the package bundles work, if you go to your installed packages, for example, let's just say as an example that I want to make a bundle of all of the packages that I have installed on my system. I'm just going to select all of them here, and then I'll need to click on the ellipsis menu here so I can get to the add selection to bundle option. If you have the application full screen, you should just have the add selection to bundle option right there. But I'm using it in a windowed mode now. So you can just select that and then click add selection to bundle. And then if you go to package bundles, you'll have all of the apps that you just added right here. Now, if there's something you want to add that's not part of this list, so let's, for example, just use WhatsApp again, because that's something I uninstalled previously. So let's go to discover packages then. Then we're going to search for WhatsApp once again. We're going to find WhatsApp. I'm going to select it, and then I'll click on add selection to bundle, and it's going to add WhatsApp to the list of apps that I have in the bundle here, and we can see it right there. So what I can do now is I can save this bundle as a specific file, and I'm just going to save this file as apps bundle. You can also choose a different file type here. I'm just going to leave the default selected and then click on save, and that's going to save this apps bundle file to my desktop. So I can basically now remove all of these selections from the bundle. And let's say as an example, I just formatted and reinstalled Windows completely and I have no apps on the system. I can now basically just go ahead and download and install UniGetUI. Then I can just go ahead and click on open existing bundle. I can select this apps bundle file and I'll have all of the packages or apps that I had installed previously ready to go for me to just select all of them and then click on install selection, which will install all of those apps that I usually use or that I had on my system before without having to go to each website individually and going and downloading each installation file separately. I can now just install all of those apps using UniGetUI, provided that it does have a source to install from. So for example, I'll be able to install 7-zip because it can be installed from Winget, but I can't install the AMD chipset software because it doesn't have a source to download that file. So that's something I'll have to go and download and install manually. And you can easily tell which of these can't be installed by looking at the source, and it's also grayed out. So you can basically also deselect these packages before saving your bundle file, so you don't even have them included. But I would just save the bundle file with all of the apps that I had on the system previously, because now I can see which things I still need to go and download and install manually by looking at this list here. And it's just going to help me make sure that I don't miss any of the software that I was using on my previous Windows installation. So this is going to help you and save you a lot of time if you're doing fresh installs of Windows and setting it up on different computers on a regular basis. Another thing I'd like to show you is that you can also share packages. So I've gotten a lot of YouTube comments from people saying that, for example, if they do a search for the Xbox app on the Discover Packages tab, they can't get the Xbox app for Windows to show up. For example, there is the Xbox app that I can download from the Microsoft Store. What you'll need to do is you need to select the app, you need to have it highlighted, and then click on the share button, which is going to give you a share link. So you can share it using one of these apps here, or you can generate a QR code, or you can just copy the code. And then if I paste that into the browser, it's going to take us to the Marty Clement website and show us the specific package that we just shared with the package ID, and it's going to give us a direct link to view the app in UniGetUI. So if I click on that, it's going to open UniGetUI, and then it's going to load the Xbox app because that's what I just shared here. And it basically does a search for the app ID, and it's now loaded the Xbox app, and I can choose to install it as well, but it also shows it here in the list of discovered packages. So if there's a specific app you're searching for and you know for a fact that it is available on the Microsoft Store or on Scoop or Chocolatey, but you just can't find it in your UniGetUI app, ask a friend or use a different computer and see if you can find it that way, and then just share it to yourself using this share option inside of UniGetUI. We're going to go ahead and move on to settings, and you obviously have a whole bunch of general preferences and stuff that you can set according to your liking. But something that I want to show you here is if you go to the updates preferences here, you can select this option to install all available updates automatically. So if you just want to install UniGetUI and basically forget about it and let it manage all of your updates for you, and you don't want to have to go to the software updates tab every few days and then update the selected packages manually, you can just select this option to install all available updates automatically. And then if you do that, you probably also want to go to the startup options tab here, where you can then manage the UniGetUI auto start behavior, and you can open the settings app on your computer and you'll get UniGetUI here, and then just make sure that it is toggled on. And then you can also enable both of these options here, so it can update the package indexes, and then it also enables the Scoop package manager cleanup on launch. Now you also have some other options here, like you can back up your installed packages. You can periodically perform a backup of all your installed packages, and you can see a detailed breakdown of what will happen if you select that option here. You also have some admin settings here, and then for the package managers, you can select which package manager you want to use. If there's any of these package managers here that you don't want to use, you can always just deselect those and you won't get the results for those anymore. Generally, I just recommend leaving all of this on, but if you're a more advanced user, you can deselect some of these package managers, but that's completely up to you. You generally have to use Winget if you're downloading Microsoft Store apps, and then Scoop and Chocolatey are also one of the most well-known package managers that you can use on Windows. Today we're taking a look at how you can easily convert some of the most common file types in Windows with a free utility called File Converter. And File Converter is going to allow you to easily convert files like audio files, video files, image files, and even some documents. So if you want to convert common file types in Windows, like MP4 files to MP3 files, or you want to convert WebP files to PNG or JPEG files, or even PDF files to PNG files, this video is going to be very useful to you. So let's get started by downloading and installing File Converter, and then I'll take you through a quick walkthrough of how it works. So you can get it from the official GitHub page here, or you can download it from the website. I prefer using GitHub, but I'll include both of these links in my written guide that I'm going to have on my website, and you can find a link to that in the description of this video. I create a written guide for each video that I create, and you can go and have a look at all of that on my website. But to continue with File Converter, so if we have a look at the File Converter GitHub page here, if we scroll down and we have a look at the description, you can see it's a simple tool that's going to allow you to convert and compress several files using the context menu in Windows Explorer. So if you have a look at this example here, basically you'll be able to right click on a file and then select File Converter, and then you can convert it to a different file type. But that's what I'm going to be showing you in this video. So if we scroll up and we go to the Releases tab here and we go to the latest release, we can go ahead and download the File Converter setup file. Once the download is finished, just click on it to run it. Then it's going to open the setup wizard. Now there's nothing complicated about this. You can just click on Next, accept the terms, click on Next again, and then just install it like you would any other program. Once it's done, just click on Finish, and then it's going to be installed on your computer. So let's just minimize the browser, and then I'm going to open this folder that I prepared for this video here, which has some different file types inside of it. So to use File Converter, you can just right click on a file that you want to convert. This is an MP3 file, but once you've right clicked on that file, you'll have this File Converter option on your context menu, and then it's going to give you a few options of other file formats that you can convert this specific file to. So this is an MP3 file. I can convert it to a WAV file. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open this window here that says the conversion was finished. And inside of the same folder, I'll now have that file, but it's going to be the new file type that I just converted it to. Now, one important thing that you'll have to note here is if you're using the default context menu in Windows 11, you might not see this option. And if we go back to the GitHub page and we go back to the description here, you can see here you have to click on Show More Options before you can get to the File Converter tab. So once again, if you have a look at this, you have to click on Show More Options, and then you'll get the old context menu to get to the File Converter settings. Now, one way around that is to use Nilesoft shell, and I've made a separate dedicated video about this, and I'll also link the video down in the description below, which basically gives you a full guide on Nilesoft shell and how you can use it and how you can create a custom context menu for yourself. And if you install that, it's going to basically replace your right click menu, and then you should have the File Converter option on your right click menu like I have here. So far, we've converted an MP3 file to a WAV file. If I select this MP4 file and then go to the File Converter menu, you can see that I have a lot of different options here. And some of the other things you also have is that you can scale this down, which will also compress the file. And you can see that I can also convert this to MP4 again, because it's an MP4 file at the moment, but I can make it low quality, which will compress the file and make the file size a little bit smaller. But here you can see all of the different file types you can convert this to. You can even convert it to a GIF or a GIF, or you can just convert it to an audio file, which will basically strip the video from the file and just leave the audio. So if we have a look at this file now, there'll be no video, it's just an audio file, whereas the MP4 file still has the video, which is a screen recording I made. Then basically it's the same for image files. JPEG files you can convert to other file types like PNG or WebP, for example. And this is where I find the app the most useful, because a lot of times you'll get a WebP file, like this is a WebP file, as you can see, and the extension also says it's a WebP file. If I right click on this and then select File Converter, I can now convert this WebP file to a PNG file or to a JPEG file. So I'll just go ahead and convert it to a PNG for this example, and then it's going to be saved as a PNG file in the same directory here. So this is one of the main uses I use File Converter for, is for those times I download WebP images, but I need to get it to PNG files easily, and I don't want to use online converters or dodgy websites to get that converted. Another thing you can also do is to convert PDF files. So this is just an example PDF file I downloaded. It's just a random PDF file. If I right click on this PDF file and look at the conversion options, I can convert this to a PNG paged file. So if I do that, it's going to read the document, then convert it. And now I have this school notes workbook, which was just a PDF file, as a PNG file. And you can see basically nothing was lost in this conversion. It's a perfect conversion of the PDF file to the PNG file. So you won't be able to convert PDF files to documents using this, but you will be able to basically create an image of it, which most of the times are easier to share on things like WhatsApp and other social media platforms. Now, File Converter does come with a bunch of presets. If I go ahead and right click on one of these files and then go to File Converter, you'll have this Configure Presets button here, and this is going to open this window where you can basically configure the presets for yourself. So if you select one of the options to do a conversion, you have way more control over what's actually happening when the conversion is taking place, what the quality is going to be, what the scale is going to be, the audio quality, depending on the type of file that you're converting. And you also have the same options if you go to the scale formats here, which is basically just a collection of different quality and scale settings. Now, normally I just tend to leave all of this on the defaults. I don't really go and change any of these settings, but I'm just showing it to you so you know that you have the option of changing these presets to suit your needs. Then if you go to application, you can also choose different languages here. You can change the maximum number of simultaneous conversions. You can automatically exit the window once the conversions are finished, which I like doing. And we can set that to 1 second. You can check for updates automatically, and you can copy files to your clipboard after conversion if you want to do that. Then once that's done, you can just click on save. So File Converter isn't a new app by any means. It's been around for some time now, but I thought I'd just show it to you in this video because from all of the file converters I've used, it really is the best, and it's so easily integrated into the Windows context menu. You don't have to go online and use a website to convert your files. You can do it offline on your computer. And if you're wondering how it's doing these conversions, on the GitHub page here, you can see all of the apps that it's using in the background to do these conversions. I'm not completely sure, but I think most of the software here is open source as well. But if you're wondering what other middlewares it's installing on your computer, you can go and have a look at all of these apps here. Today we're going to be having a look at a software called Wintoys, which is another program that basically helps you optimize Windows and customize Windows to some regard. And you can find it on the Microsoft Store. And the official description of this app is to experience Windows in a way to keep it fresh every day. It helps you set up, debloat, optimize, repair, and tweak your operating system in a simple, time-saving, and yet safe approach. And it helps you to maintain it while having everything you need in one place. And it also has quite good reviews. So we're going to go ahead and download it from the official Microsoft App Store here, which will download the Wintoys installer. But you can also download it from the Microsoft Store if you want. But I'm going to be using this Wintoys installer here. And then we're going to go ahead and let it download and install. And then it's also automatically going to launch on the system. So first off, we're going to see an hello message. It says that we can uninstall any app with this program, even apps that don't have an uninstall option in Windows. We're going to see if we can remove Microsoft Edge. It helps us boost our PC. It speeds up Windows and increases frame rate in certain games, keeps Windows clean and free up storage space, and it lets us personalize the desktop and learn cool new features. And then it also says that we need to create a system restore point before we make any changes to the device. So first off, on this home page here, we can see all of our system specs. It also gives us a performance score for our system. And then we can see some utilization here, like the processor, video card, memory, and the network bandwidth and all of that. If we go to the first tab here, which is apps, this is basically a list of apps that we can uninstall. Let's see if we can uninstall Microsoft Edge. No, we do not have the option to uninstall Microsoft Edge. So it doesn't look like it's true that we can remove the other apps that you aren't able to remove with the built-in uninstaller. But you can use this to uninstall apps from your system. If we go to services, this is basically giving us a list of all of the running services. And this is the same info that you'll be getting in Task Manager. If you click on the services tab down here, you can also see a list of services that's running if you change the status to running. Now I'm guessing you can also stop and start the services here, which is quite nice. And you can also filter the services by these different categories here. Next, let's go to performance and see what we can do here. So we can activate the ultimate performance power plan, which is useful for some people. I also have it activated. I do recommend that you use it, especially if you're using a desktop. And if you click on this settings here, it's going to open the power options in control panel. And you can see that I have ultimate performance enabled, and I also have these power settings here. You can also enable hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. I don't have that enabled. I'm just going to leave it disabled as well, but it allows the video card to allocate tasks more efficiently and reduces CPU latency. Then you have virtual-based security, which basically uses memory to increase protection against vulnerabilities and malware or malicious exploits. If you do have performance issues, you can go ahead and disable that and see if the performance issues goes away. But generally, I do recommend keeping that enabled. Then startup apps, we can expand this and easily toggle startup apps. I'm just going to uncheck the Microsoft PC Manager. Then you have this option to relaunch apps, which automatically relaunches apps every time you sign back into Windows. I don't like doing that, so I'm going to leave that disabled. You can disable background apps. In Windows 10, you had this slider where you can just disable all of those apps, but you don't have that in Windows 11. Having it in this software here, I think is very cool because you can just toggle your background apps right here. Then activity history, I always keep that off, but you can basically just change this in Windows settings as well. You can change some Windows UI related settings. You can automatically adjust visual effects for best performance. Some people don't like doing this because it makes some stuff in Windows look bad, but it basically sets these visual effects in Windows. Then you can also toggle transparency effects here, which I do have enabled. Then we have some gaming settings. I do have game mode enabled, but all of these others are turned off, and you can set these according to your preferences. We've got search indexing and we've got delivery optimization, which I do recommend having switched off. And then you have the option here to offload some network functions from your CPU to the network adapter's onboard processor. This is disabled for me, so I'm not going to enable that, but that is an option if you want to use that to basically take some strain off your CPU. Next, if we go to the health tab here, what other options do we have? You can enable or disable fast startup and enable or disable hibernation. That is enabled for me by default, I see. So I'm just going to leave that enabled. You can enable drive optimization. Now, if we open the settings here, I'm pretty sure this is just the optimized drives window where it basically trims your SSDs. We've got this repair section, and this is pretty cool because you have these 3 commands all here next to each other. And this can really help repair a lot of issues you might have in Windows because it runs this DISM command, the SFC command, and check disk. And you need to select at least one tool before you can scan and repair your computer. But if you are having any sort of issues on your PC where stuff just isn't working properly, or your taskbar is broken, the start menu doesn't want to open, Windows Explorer isn't working properly, or your computer updated recently and things just isn't as it used to be, then I recommend checking all of these options here, and then you can click on scan or repair. I'm not going to be doing that in this video because it does take quite a long time, and you don't need to use Wintoys to run these commands. You can do it in a normal PowerShell window by typing out the commands yourself, but this is just a very user-friendly way of running those commands and getting your Windows repaired. So keep that in mind for the future. Now next, you can do a memory diagnostic. And this is going to use the Windows built-in memory diagnostic tool that I don't really recommend using. I've made another video on this channel showing you exactly how you can test your memory for errors, and you can check the channel for that guide. It's much better and more comprehensive than using the memory diagnostic tool in Windows. Now next, you have this cleanup option here. We can unpin all items from the taskbar. We can delete all junk files. We can clear the Microsoft Store cache. We can flush the DNS, and then we can also delete all system restore points to free up some space. Now this is going to come down to personal preference. You can decide what you want to do. I'm just going to delete all junk files, which will open this window here. And then we have some options here. I'm going to select all of them, which will delete temp files, Windows updates, prefetch, and we can also delete the browser cache. And I'll go ahead and click on delete, and then you'll see these junk files were deleted. Now I also made another video checking out the Microsoft PC Manager, which basically does the same thing as this. And that's the only option I'm going to be using in this cleanup section here. For the system updates, you can configure how updates work. Now this installation that I have already just downloaded and installs security updates. But this is also really easy just to change your Windows update schedule from the defaults to security. And I see you also have the option of just checking for updates without installing them by setting this to manually. And you can completely disable Windows updates. Now, obviously, disabling Windows updates will leave you vulnerable to some threats because you don't have the latest updates. So I don't really recommend doing that, but you do have the option of choosing any one of these if you want to have more control over your Windows updates. And in my opinion, this is a really cool feature, having control over your Windows updates like this. Then you have the option to automatically download and install app updates. I don't actually want that enabled, so I'm going to disable that. Then you have this sleeping pill option where it can detect and stop scheduled tasks from randomly waking up your device from sleep. I don't really have any option there, so I'm just going to leave that. You can restart your graphics driver if it has weird issues. I'm thinking it's best just to restart your entire computer in that case, but if you do constantly have weird issues like freezing or flickering, I recommend just testing your graphics card to see if it might be faulty. I have another video on this channel showing you how you can test your graphics card and get the latest graphics driver installed and all of that, and I recommend checking out the channel for that video, and I might even link it down in the description of this video, because you really shouldn't be having constant issues like freezing or flickering. That just means something is wrong on your computer, and especially with your graphics card. And then lastly, you have the option here to rebuild the cache of your icons or thumbnails if they're blank, blurry, or corrupted. I don't have that issue, so let's just go ahead and check out the tweaks section, which is the last section here. So we've got this desktop section where we can change desktop related settings. So for example, we can put this PC icon on the desktop, and you'll just have to right click and then refresh, and then you'll have this PC icon on the desktop. So this is pretty cool. You can add any one of these icons to your desktop really easily. Then you also have the option of showing the shortcut arrow. I have that enabled by default, which is the default in Windows, but you can disable that if you want. You can enable drop shadows for icon labels. You can enable this show desktop button here, which you normally have at your taskbar. I have StartAllBack installed on my computer, so it already replaces the shell. We've got this wallpaper quality setting, which is set to 85. I'm going to set that to 100, and it says we need to reapply the wallpaper after a device restart. So I'm not going to be doing that in this video now. You also have the option of enabling the classic context menu, which is the classic right-click menu in Windows. Now, like I mentioned, I'm using StartAllBack, but for a right-click menu replacement, I recommend using Shell by Nilesoft. And I already have a video on that, and I'll link the playlist of all of the shell replacement videos I made in the description of this video. So you can go ahead and check those out, because there really are a lot of great free programs out there that you can use to customize Windows 11 and to make it a lot better. So I recommend going ahead and checking out that playlist. But let's have a look at some of the other options here. For the start menu, we can toggle all of these settings here, which is disabled for me by default anyway. Then for the File Explorer settings, we also have some different options that we can choose from here. Something I always like having enabled is to show file extensions. This is really beneficial to see what file types you have and what you're working with. You can toggle showing hidden files here, and then you also have a whole bunch of other options. Another one is opening your File Explorer to this PC, home or downloads. Now, I think this PC is the best, and I'll leave that selected. Lastly, we have the privacy settings here. Now, I think this is really cool because you have access to all of these privacy settings under one tab here, and that's something in Windows that I absolutely despise, is all of this telemetry and all of these things that you can see here, and that's why it's disabled by default for me. In the UnattendedWinstall answer files that I use to install Windows, I basically try and switch all of these things off as well. Now, unfortunately, sometimes when you do use Microsoft apps, they don't work as intended because a lot of these things are disabled, and Microsoft needs those as dependencies for those programs to function properly. But for what I use my computer for, these settings work for me. Then we have an ads option here, which basically gives us a whole bunch of sliders that we can turn off so we don't get tailored experiences. It doesn't track our ad ID, doesn't suggest notifications, and this is all disabled by default for me as well. And I really recommend that if you have these things turned on, if you download Wintoys and you see that you have these things turned on, I really recommend turning off all of these privacy settings here and also disabling all of these ad settings. And if you do find that something is broken, you can always just enable it again in this app here, but this will make a huge difference in the data that gets sent to Microsoft about your usage patterns and also the ads that you see in Windows. So these two drop-down menus here, the privacy and the ads, I think is one of the best features that is inside of Wintoys, because it gives you easy access to all of these things on one page without you having to go into the Windows settings and then going to privacy and security and going through each one of these tabs to turn off those options. So I think those two are really great features, and I might even use this app on other installs of Windows to get all of these things turned off easily. And lastly, we have system related settings like mouse acceleration and clipboard history, and you can snip with the print screen key. You can enable or disable user account control here, and then you also have this mode here that you can enable where you'll get this desktop shortcut, and if you open that, it's basically going to give you a list of every single control panel link that you have in Windows. Now, Microsoft announced that they're going to be retiring the control panel completely from Windows, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll see if this actually still works. I don't see how they can retire it completely. Maybe in the next version of Windows, but we'll see. And then the very last setting here in tweaks is you can extract the Spotlight images if you are using Windows Spotlight and you see those desktop wallpapers that Microsoft basically shows as ads in Windows. If you like one of those images, you can extract those images to a folder, and you'll just have to choose a folder where you want to save it, and then you can extract those images if you want to download them. If we go to the settings tab here, we also have a theme we can choose, the backdrop. Then you can choose where this app must open to the home page, apps, services, or any one of these tabs. You can create a shortcut for this app, and then error reporting is enabled by default, so it can help the developer to identify issues. So I think Wintoys is a great app. Like I said before, to me, the most important thing and the thing I like the most is having access to the privacy settings and the ads all on one page, so I can just disable all of these settings here without having to go into Windows and manually going to every setting to find it and disable it. Today we're going to be having a look at the Microsoft PC Manager, which some people are saying is like CCleaner, but designed by Microsoft. And I'm going to give you my thoughts along the way and see if this program is any good. Now, to start off, you can get it straight from the Microsoft Store as well, but I'm just going to download it from the Microsoft webpage here. But before we do that, let's just have a look at what Microsoft says this thing does. So it boosts your PC, cleans up system files and free up space, boosts your performance. It also manages your storage. It can block pop-up in Windows apps, which, well, shouldn't be there in the first place. There shouldn't be ads in Windows anyway, but okay, we're going to have a look at that. Then it can give you a health checkup, can scan for threats. It's got a toolbox and mini toolbar, which gives you this type of widget, it seems, on your desktop. So let's go ahead and download it and see how it works. So I'm just going to click on the download button here, which will download the installer. If we open that, it's going to start downloading and installing this Microsoft PC Manager. Now it says it's using the Microsoft Store, but I don't even actually have the Microsoft Store installed on this computer. So it's probably just using one of those dependencies. So it's finished downloading and installing now. I'm not going to let this start automatically when I sign into Windows, but we can start the app. And the first problem we have here is it's missing a required runtime, and I can try and download the runtime. So I also don't have Microsoft Edge installed on this computer, which is probably the issue because it's downloading Microsoft Edge WebView. So I'll go ahead and run that, which will download and install Microsoft Edge WebView to runtime. And this is also a dependency for some Adobe apps. So this is one of those things, if you do remove Microsoft Edge from your computer, you might have this type of issue. Now, hopefully this doesn't install Microsoft Edge back onto the computer. Not that I think Microsoft Edge is a bad browser, but the ads on the homepage is what bothers me, and then as well as it forcing you to use Bing or constantly nagging you to use Bing as your search engine. If I can fix those two issues, then I might probably use Microsoft Edge as my main browser. So it's finished installing. I'm just going to click on retry, and it looks like it's repairing. So it looks like it's done repairing and it just launched for the first time. So what do we have here? We can boost the PC performance, we can manage our storage, and we can safeguard digital assets. So right here, reset Edge browser's default search engine to Bing. If I was using Edge, I wouldn't want that. So that I don't like that at all. Just going to uncheck that in any case and click on OK, which will launch the PC Manager here. So let's have a look at the home page. So first off, we can boost the PC performance. If I click on that, what does it do? It basically deletes temporary files, and I think it clears out some RAM. Then we also have this Smart Boost button up here, which takes us to the settings. So we can enable this to let PC Manager automatically boost our PC when there's high usage of RAM or there are 1 GB of temporary files. So I guess that's pretty cool. We can switch that on. Then for the general settings, I mean, if you are going to use the PC Manager, then you probably want to have it enabled when you sign into Windows. So if you are planning on using this, if you do like it, then make sure that it automatically starts up when you sign into Windows. But if we go back to the home page, we can do a health check, which will scan for a few things. So let's see what it found. Select actions to proceed. So reset Edge defaults. If we hover here, it wants to restore the search engine to Bing. Again, Microsoft, why? Why do you want to do that? Reset the taskbar to its default appearance and disable third-party extensions. I also don't want to do that. I'm using StartAllBack on my computer, which is a shell replacement. So I'm not using the default taskbar in any case. So for this PC health checkup, I don't agree with these two options, that it wants to reset the search engine of Edge to Bing and reset my taskbar settings that I have. I don't agree with that. But this does seem quite nice, where it wants to clean up the Windows cache, temp files, which we've already done with the boost, and then system logs. Then you also have some startup apps here. Now on your computer, you probably have a whole list of startup items. I don't have that many on this computer, so I only have the Windows security notification that's enabled, because all of the other startup apps I've already disabled in the Task Manager, which you can just do by going to Task Manager, Startup Apps, and then all of these other things have been disabled as well. So you don't need PC Manager to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and click on Proceed so it can run these tasks, and then we're going to go ahead and click on Done. If we go to the Process tab here, we can see a list of the processes. So this is basically also the same thing that you can see inside of Task Manager, but it's a little bit more cleaned up. You don't have all of the services and stuff showing here. You just have these processes, and then you can end them, like Microsoft Edge updates. I can end that. So this is a nice list that you can just use to quickly end the tasks with. If we go back to home and we do a deep cleanup, it's going to scan for files that we can clean up. So we can clean up Windows Update, we can clean up Windows Defender files and temp files, which we've done before already. Then we can also clean up Windows Prefetch, the remote desktop cache, and delivery optimization files. I think this is quite nice. We have application cache that we can clear. I'll go ahead and select that. There's some files in the recycle bin, and then there's the web cache. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these and then click on Proceed, which will basically clean up almost 1.5 gig of drive space on my computer. So that's quite nice. I like that. Then Startup is basically the same startup processes we saw earlier, and it also recommends keeping on Realtek, which is the driver. So that's good. I think that's pretty useful seeing that. Now, if you go over to protection, we've got this virus and threat protection here, which will basically just take us to Windows security. We've got Windows Update, default browser settings, which I'm guessing wants us to use Microsoft Edge, which isn't installed anyway. Then we can repair the taskbar, which I don't want to do. And then we can also reset default apps to open files, which I guess might be useful in some cases if your app defaults aren't working properly. But then again, this is going to reset everything back to Edge. Your PDFs are going to open with Microsoft Edge, and it's basically just going to force using all of the Microsoft products, and it most probably also going to reset the search engine to Bing. Then we have this pop-up management, which blocks pop-up windows in apps. So we can enable this to block those pop-ups, and it invites us to join the Microsoft PC Manager pop-up management program. After joining this, you can take screenshots of pop-ups that you don't want to see but can't close and send us the screenshots to optimize the pop-up management feature. You can choose not to participate and a whole bunch of other stuff, and then we do not collect information or any other screenshots that you send us. Yeah, no thanks, I'm not going to be doing that, but I will enable the pop-up block. I'm just not exactly sure what it's blocking. Is it ads in Windows or what is it? If you know, let me know in the comments down below, but I don't want to see ads in Windows, so I'll leave this selected and see how it works. Then if you go to storage, we've already done a scan of the drives before. Then you can manage your downloaded files, you can manage large files, and you can scan for duplicate files, which might be very useful as well. And then you have Storage Sense, which is basically part of Windows, which you can configure without this app. But I must mention that I think this duplicate files finder is quite handy. I'm not going to be scanning for duplicate files in this video, but I think this could be very useful. And also the large files finder. Usually I use a program called WizTree to find large files, but this could also work pretty well. So I do think this is quite useful. And then for the apps, we can check out the app management section here, where we can again manage our processes, which is what we've done before. We can have a look at the startup apps. We can uninstall apps, which I'm guessing will basically just show us the same thing we get in Windows, but where we can uninstall anything really easily. And it looks like Microsoft Edge was reinstalled when I downloaded this app. So if we go back to the apps section here, we also have Microsoft Store. Now, I don't have the Microsoft Store installed on this computer. If I click on this, is it going to open it? No, it doesn't have a link to open the Microsoft Windows Store, because I don't have it installed. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on OK, but this would just open the Microsoft Store on your computer, so you can get to that and browse for more apps. If we go to the toolbox section here, what do we have? We have the show toolbar on the desktop, and this is the widget that we saw on the web page earlier. So if we click on this, it's going to boost the computer. Then we have Notepad, which opens Notepad on our computer, and then we also have Edge Quick Links, which makes us open Edge. So Edge is reinstalled, and I'm guessing the Microsoft PC Manager didn't just reinstall the WebView Runtime 2, it also installed Edge as a whole. Now here's the problem I have with Edge. There's an ad. If you scroll down, there's an ad, there's another ad, and it basically just shows you a whole bunch of news that you don't want to see. Now, I am aware that if you click on the settings here, you can toggle off the feed so you don't see that. So that is a way of getting rid of it. But normally after a few days, Microsoft prompts you to re-enable that, or it just gets re-enabled by itself after an update. And that's what I don't like. If we click on the settings here, we can open the PC Manager from this widget. We can add some more tools like PC Boost, Search, Captions, Currency Converter, Translator, the weather, and all of that. That's honestly not something that I use, but I'm just showing it to you in this video in case you want to try out this app for yourself, and then you can also search the web here. So after checking out this app, I do think it has a place. It can definitely help you in some regards, like it's really easy cleaning up space with this deep clean function here and cleaning your temporary files and stuff. So this could help you maintain your computer and manage your computer, as it's called. And a lot of these functions you already have access to in Windows itself, in the Windows settings like Task Manager and Disk Management and that type of thing. But this PC Manager app just makes it a little bit easier to get to those settings and to help you keep your PC optimized. Today we're taking a look at the OMEN Gaming Hub by HP, and this is another useful free utility that you can use on Windows 10 and Windows 11. And basically what it does is it also optimizes your computer for gaming, and it has a lot of other useful features as well. So if we just have a quick look at the description here, it can basically monitor your CPU, GPU, and RAM, and also your network performance. It also has some optimizations for games. You can optimize your RGB lighting. It's got a network booster. Got some overclocking features, and then it's also got performance control. Now, one thing to note here is not all of the features are available on all PCs. So if you see something working on this video and you can't get it to work on your computer, that's probably why. But nonetheless, this app has pretty good reviews, and I do think this app comes pre-installed on some HP gaming laptops, most probably. But you can use it on any computer. It doesn't have to be an HP. And that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. So you can get it from the official Microsoft page here, and you can also get it from the Microsoft Store if you have that installed. I don't have that installed on this computer, so I'm just going to download it from this website here, which will download an executable file for us to install the OMEN Gaming Hub. But I'm going to click on this OMEN Gaming Hub installer executable file, and it's going to open this installation wizard, which will then start downloading and installing the OMEN Gaming Hub. Once it's finished installing, it's also going to launch automatically. So on first launch, we've got this welcome message that says, what if we could clean up, organize, and optimize our hard drive with a cleaner? What if we could enhance performance for the apps that need it the most with a booster? Organize and launch all our games no matter where we bought them. And we don't need a gaming machine to have it perform like one. We can go ahead and explore this app. So let's go ahead and click on OK. I'm just going to accept all of this license terms. And then we've got a quick walkthrough. So if we need a boost, we can use Booster, and it's automatically turned on to optimize our CPU, memory, and network processes, enhancing our gameplay experience. And then for additional optimization, we can explore the cleaner and booster settings. So we'll have a look at that. We can use the OMEN Gaming Hub to organize all our games, and we don't need to have different launchers up and running. Next, we can get access to exclusive discounts and check the greatest deals on games, memberships, collectibles, and more. And then we can also download and share the coolest desktop wallpapers. We can have a look at our system's vitals. And then if we're ever lost, we can just click up here and it's going to walk us through what we can do with the OMEN Gaming Hub. So I'm just going to click on done, and then let's have a look at this app for ourselves. So right here on the homepage, we can see some offers. Then we've got some widgets that shows us our CPU, GPU, and RAM utilization. We can see our recently played games. Booster is currently on, which boosts all our games. We've got top deals that we can have a look at, our favorite games, and then we've got a gallery. So I'm just going to start going through these tabs one by one. We've got home right now, overlays. We can toggle some overlays and switch that on. If I click on that, it basically gives us overlays for our CPU, GPU, RAM, FPS, and our network speeds. And we can choose between different views. So we've got a compact view and then we've got a normal view. So right now I have both of them selected. So we can move it wherever we want. The same with the one up here. And then we can also pin it so it stays there. So this is pretty cool if you want to have a look at that at all times. Generally, I don't enable that, but you can also click on the ellipsis menu here, and then you can choose what you want to see. So if, for example, you only wanted to have an FPS counter, you can just have the FPS enabled, and then you can basically just put this anywhere on the screen, and then you'll be able to see your FPS at all times. But like I said, I generally don't use this. So I'm just going to turn that off. To open this menu, you've got a hotkey, Shift and F2. Then we can go back to the OMEN Gaming Hub. We've got some different settings here where we can change the hotkey, the background opacity, color, and all of that. I'm just going to close that for now, and we can move on to the next tab, which is Shop Games. It's automatically applied a coupon code for us, and we can basically have a look through the store and purchase any game from here. And you can also see some deals that's going on right now. If we go to My Games, I'm guessing it's just going to do a scan on your system to see what games you have installed, and it's going to show all of your games in a library. Like we saw on the welcome screen of this app, that you can basically launch any game right from within the OMEN Gaming Hub. Now, I don't actually have any of these games installed, so these are probably like ads or suggested games for the Google Play Store. But if I had games installed on this computer, it would probably show up here. So Boost is turned on by default, and we're going to have a look at that later on once we get to the Boost settings. But next we've got a deals tab here, and this is obviously where we can get the best deals on games that's currently on sale. But one of the best things here is it actually gives you free games that you can claim on different platforms. So this one is on Epic Games. This one is on Steam. That one's also on Steam. So basically you can go ahead and claim your free copy of these games. So this free games feature in itself, to me, is worth it having the OMEN Gaming Hub installed, even if you don't use the optimizer or if you don't even believe that that even helps your system. The OMEN Gaming Hub will notify you of any free games on any of these other platforms, and then you can just go ahead and claim those. So that's a pretty cool feature of the OMEN Gaming Hub, and I quite like that. And you can also see some free-to-play games here, and then also the deals that we've discussed before. Then if we go to Gallery, we can download community wallpapers, and you can see there's a lot of different collections and types of wallpapers to choose from. So obviously there will be mostly gaming wallpapers, and then we've also got OMEN wallpapers by HP. And I guess for the sake of this video, let's go ahead and change my wallpaper. So I'm just going to select this first one here, and then we've got some different options here. So we can either just set it as the PC background, or we can download it and then set it as the PC background. Now I'm not going to download it right now. I'm just going to set it as my desktop background. And if we minimize the app, you can see obviously that my desktop wallpaper has changed now. So that's pretty cool if you want to use this app to get some cool wallpapers and apply that to your system. Obviously, if we click on See All, we get access to a whole bunch of different wallpapers. And I'm pretty sure all of these are free, and you can just go ahead and select any one and then set it as your desktop wallpaper, or just download it and save it on your computer. If we go to the Optimizer tab and we have a look at the quick setup, is where I'm going to start. So it says the OMEN Optimizer allows us to temporarily boost our game with Booster and keeps our PC free of junk with cleaner, for optimal performance. Let's get started. So I'm going to click on Let's Go. We can automatically boost all our games, but that's already turned on by default. We can go in and configure the settings. We're going to have a look at that now. And we can scan and clean the system for junk. So previously on this channel, I've used tools like Microsoft PC Manager, as well as Wintoys, which basically does the same thing. And you've got access to this type of thing in Windows itself, but sometimes these apps help some people just get access to those types of things easier. So let's have a look at the booster and configure that. So here on my system, it's detected 2 out of 7 items that should be optimized. And if we have a look at that, it says it should disable automatic updates. So it's temporarily going to disable Windows automatic updates, which is a good thing, in my opinion, especially if you're gaming. And then it's also going to do a memory boost and clear any unused working and standby memory. Then we also have some other options here, which isn't selected at the moment, like processor optimization, which is going to optimize CPU scheduling, and it's going to disable energy saving features. We can disable file and printer sharing, which I'm guessing is going to improve network performance. I'm not too sure, but that's what I'm guessing. And then we can also temporarily disable the Windows key, so we don't accidentally press that and tab out of the game. And we can also temporarily disable automatic background video recording when playing a game. You probably don't want that if you're using that to record gameplay, but that is an option. And then we can also clear the clipboard history to release memory. So right now, both of these are selected. So because the booster is turned on, these 2 settings that are selected is automatically going to be applied. I can also apply the processor optimization and clear the clipboard history. So all 4 of those items will now be automatically applied. Now, if you're having any issues with this, you can obviously just turn off the booster, or you can click on reset to default. If you go to this next tab here and have a look at the processes, we can basically see all of our background processes, the same that Task Manager would show. And we can see the memory that it's using. And then we can basically go ahead and probably select one of these apps. Like, let's just select UniGetUI as an example. And I'm guessing we have to click on manual boost for these options to take effect. So I thought these would be automatically applied. It seems that I'm just selecting the options that I want to use, and then I'm going to click on manual boost to actually apply those settings. So here we've got basic Windows services that can be safely turned off to free up system resources while gaming. And we can see some of these are already stopped, but some of the others are running. So I think if you want to try and get some performance optimizations while gaming, you can just go ahead and select all of these and then apply a manual boost and see if you have any performance increases while gaming. Some people say these apps are just placebo. Personally, I don't know. In this video, I'm not going to be doing a benchmark or anything like that. I'm just showing you the app, and you can go ahead and do the tests on your own system, because there's so many different hardware configurations out there. And even if I do have a performance increase on my PC, it doesn't mean you're going to have one on yours. So that's stuff you can test on your own. But if we have a look at the next tab here, which is advanced services, which is also Windows services, but these may disrupt normal operation of your PC. So if you don't know what these are and what they do, it's best just to leave these services alone. But honestly, you can go ahead and play around with this yourself and then see if you have any performance increases while gaming. I'm just going to go ahead and click on manual boost, and as you can see, it's then going to apply the 5 items that I selected in the booster configuration here. And obviously, if you selected more, they would all be applied now. So booster is active. And if you want to undo this or turn it off, you can just click on restore, and it's then going to restore those settings to default. If you do test this out after watching this video, or if you've tested it out before, please let me know in the comments down below if the booster actually gave you a performance increase on your system while gaming. But we're going to be moving on to the cleaner tab here. And honestly, this is just like a disk cleanup tool. I'm guessing we can scan our system, we can review the items to clean, and then we can clean the system, and we can also do scheduled cleaning. So let's just have a quick look at this. We can do a scan. It's going to do a scan for all of the system files. So basically we've got the recycle bin, which is quite large. I need to clear that out. Then we've got Windows temp files, installer temp files, the default download folder, which isn't selected to be cleaned by default. You'll have to go ahead and click on that, but I'm not going to do that now. We've got downloaded installers, recent files, and then a whole bunch of other stuff. And we can also clear the browser cache. Let's go ahead and do that. And it's also going to clear out some other things like history and session, all of that. And then we've also got game platforms like Steam, and we can clear the cache there. I'm not going to be doing that now, but I will go ahead and click on clean so we can clean out these files that I just selected here. And then we can see the status of it here on the left, and now it's complete. So it seems like with these exclamation marks here, some of these items couldn't be cleaned, and it doesn't really give us any more info other than saying that this item couldn't be cleaned. But it's probably because some of those files are in use because they are system files. So I'm just going to ignore that for now. If you go to the next tab here, it says no items were selected for optimization. So I don't know if that's just on my PC. But we can also restore all Windows settings back to default. I'm definitely not going to be doing that. So I'll just close that. And then on the next tab here, it also says no items were selected for optimization. So I'm not completely sure if that's just on my PC or what's supposed to happen here. I obviously don't have any items to select for optimization or cleaning. So then obviously we can use the scheduler to have it run automatically at a certain time and day of the week, and also show us a notification if you want that. Personally, I don't use these type of things. You can do all of this in Windows itself, but if you want to use the app for that, you're welcome. And then if we go back to quick setup, we can see the booster and the cleaner that we just used. Next, if we go to Light Studio, we have to download and install the OMEN Light Studio for the advanced RGB lighting effects on our setup. I'm not going to be doing that in this video. If we have a look at the My PC tab, we've got the System Vitals, which basically shows us the utilizations again, and the top processes. We also get a storage breakdown of our drives here. And then we've got different modes here. We've got a basic view, we've got an advanced view if we want to have some more info. And this is also pretty cool because you can see your temps here and just have a nice dashboard for all of that. And we've also got an info tab here telling us the model of our motherboard, what RAM we have installed, the operating system, processor. It basically just gives us a whole bunch of info with regards to our hardware. So after having a look at the OMEN Gaming Hub app, to me, the best things about it are the deals tab here where we can get free games and we can see where we can get those games. I think that's really cool because you can basically collect a whole bunch of games, and I know some people like doing that. Even if they never play the game, they just collect a whole bunch of different games just to say that they have it, and they're basically game collectors. The other thing is having access to all of these wallpapers here. If we go to the gallery tab, there's really a whole bunch of awesome wallpapers that you can get from the community, and they're all free. And this can just help you to effortlessly change your wallpaper from time to time and leave your PC looking fresh. And then lastly, I guess this booster is also quite a nice function, which gives you some control over some of these services in Windows and helps you basically just optimize your PC a little bit more for gaming. But like I said, I haven't personally tested this. Leave a comment down below if you have tested it and tell me if it actually does give you a performance increase on your PC while gaming. If you're having trouble getting the correct drivers installed on your Windows computer, this video should be helpful to you, because in this video I'm going to show you how you can use a Snappy driver installer Origin to identify and install missing drivers on your Windows computer. So to start, you can open up your browser and then you can come over to this webpage, which is Glenn Delahoy's webpage, where you can download the Snappy driver installer Origin. Now there's also another version just called Snappy driver installer, and that's the one that you don't want to use. You want to use Snappy driver installer Origin, and you want to get it from this webpage. I'll also have a link to this in my written guide, which you can get in the description of this video. So once you're on this webpage, you can download the application here. So if you click on that, it's going to start the download. Once it's done, just open it in your downloads folder. And this is a zip file, so you'll just need to right click on it and then click on extract all and just extract that to another folder on your computer. And once it's finished, it should open the folder automatically. And then you want to run the following file depending on your operating system. If you have a 32-bit version of Windows, you can run this application. But if you have a 64-bit version of Windows, you can use the x64 application. So I'm just going to double click on the x64 application because I have 64-bit version of Windows installed. You can then just accept the license and allow access to the Snappy driver installer Origin so it can download the drivers for your computer. And on this first welcome screen, you shouldn't select any one of the first two options. You should only select download indexes only, or else it's going to download every single driver that's ever existed, and you don't want that. But it's going to download the indexes, and you can see that up here. And once it's downloaded the indexes, it should refresh all of the drivers that are outdated on your system. So as you can see here, I've got a whole bunch of drivers that are outdated. For example, this Intel driver right here is not even installed on my system yet, but it is available on the internet. Now, all of these other drivers are installed, but there are updated drivers available on the internet which work better than the current ones that I have installed. So you can go through each one of them selectively and then select it and click on install. So you can install that specific driver. But if you just want an easy one-click installer, then just go ahead and click on select all, which is going to select all of those drivers, and then click on install here. And then you're going to see it's going to start downloading and installing those drivers. Now, depending on the size of these drivers, it can take quite a long time. As you can see, the drivers that I have selected here are almost 2 gigs in size. But you can see the status of it if you hover your mouse up here. And I'm going to let all of these drivers install on my system. And once that's done, we can have a look at what the Snappy driver installer looks like afterwards. Once it's finished downloading those drivers, it's automatically going to start installing them as well. And as you can see, my graphics driver has already been installed because the resolution has changed. When it's finished, you're going to see this flashing ribbon up here that says the installation is complete and you need to restart your system. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and restart the computer. So my computer is just restarted, and I'm just going to navigate back to the downloads folder where I have the Snappy driver installer origin saved. Then I'm just going to run this 64-bit file again, and then just accept the terms again. And then we're going to see if we still have any drivers that needs to be updated. So it's found some more drivers here, and I'm just going to click on select all again, and then click on install. Now that the installation is completed, I'm just going to click on this flashing ribbon up here, and it's going to hide that ribbon. And now Snappy driver installer says that all of my drivers are up to date. So at this point, you can restart your computer again, but I'm just going to exit out of the Snappy driver installer, and I want to see what it looks like when we right click on the start button and then go to device manager. And as you can see, all of the devices have been installed with the latest drivers according to Snappy driver installer origin. If you want to migrate your existing operating system to another drive, whether that be a hard drive or an SSD, then this video is for you. Because in this video, I'm going to be showing you how I migrate the Windows 11 operating system that's installed on this 480GB SSD onto the 120GB SanDisk SSD. So I'm already at the point where I have both of the drives connected to my computer. There is the 480GB, which is my current local disk C, the current operating system. And then I want to clone that to the 120GB SSD. So to do that, you can open up a browser on your computer, and then you can do a Google search for DiskGenius, and then just open the DiskGenius website, which is diskgenius.com. Then you can just click on free download, which will then download the DiskGenius installation file. Then you can just click on the folder, so you can open it in your downloads folder. And then you can double click on this file so you can run the setup. And the setup is straightforward. You can just select your language, then click on OK. Then you can just go through all of the normal installation wizard setup screens. And then once it's finished, you can just uncheck this box and then launch DiskGenius. Now, once it's open, here on the left, you're going to see all of the drives that you have connected to your computer. So I've got that SanDisk SSD and the Transcend 480GB SSD right here. And to migrate your operating system, you can click on Tools up here. Then you can click on System Migration. First, you'll need to select the system partition, so meaning you're going to need to select the drive where Windows is currently installed, and for me it's the C drive. It should also be the C drive for you, and that is my Transcend 480GB SSD. So I'm going to select that, then click on OK. And then we need to select a target disk, and you should only have one option if you only have 2 drives connected. But go ahead and select the disk where you want to migrate the operating system to, which in my case is the SanDisk SSD Plus 120GB. Then click on OK. You'll get a prompt saying that your target disk will be formatted and everything will be deleted. So if that's fine, just go ahead and click on OK. If you need to, you can change some of the partition sizes on your target disk. But next, you need to select this checkbox which says when finished, change computer boot sequence. So just select that and then leave this option selected which says automatically set to boot from migrated target system. This is going to tell your computer to automatically boot from the new disk where you cloned your operating system to. And then you can also just leave this box down here checked and then click on Start. You'll get another prompt about formatting the target disk. Just click on OK. And now next you'll need to make a choice, because DiskGenius can clone your drive in two ways. It can do a hot migration, or you can reboot to the Windows PE environment. Hot migration basically means your computer's not going to turn off, and it's going to clone your existing operating system to the target disk while Windows is still in use. And this option is recommended by DiskGenius. I personally don't recommend it. I recommend rebooting to the Windows PE environment, and you can go ahead and click on that if you want to do that. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to test out the hot migration feature, because that's what DiskGenius themselves suggest you do on their website. And if it doesn't work, then you can do the WinPE environment. So I'm going to go ahead and select hot migration, and then we're just going to leave this so it can finish. Once it's finished, you should see a message that says it's completed, and if you want to restart your computer, so just go ahead and click on yes. And if all goes well, it should boot automatically from the target disk, which in my case is the SanDisk 120GB SSD. So let's just open the File Explorer and then go to this PC so we can have a look at our C drive. And there we go. The C drive is now on the 120GB SSD, and the other drive is my 480GB SSD. So DiskGenius successfully migrated my operating system from one drive to the other while Windows was still in use, and I think that's a really cool feature. But if for some reason it doesn't work for you, I just want to show you what to do if you want to use the WinPE environment. So you'll just basically be going through all of the same steps, and I'm just going to clone the SanDisk drive back to the 480GB SSD. And as you can see, because the drive is larger, I have a lot of free space here. So if you want to allocate that, you can just select your C drive or the Windows partition on the target disk, and then you can just click and drag it all the way to the end, which will allocate all of that space there. Then once again, I'm just going to select this checkbox and make sure the first one is selected, and then click on Start, then click on OK. So if you want to use the WinPE environment, if the hot migration doesn't work for you for whatever reason, you can just click on Reboot to WinPE. It's going to create the Windows PE environment. And then you'll need to restart your computer. So just click on OK, and it's going to automatically restart then. And then it should automatically boot into this DiskGenius Windows PE environment. And it's automatically going to start the migration process as well. And once it's finished, it's automatically going to restart your computer again into Windows. And now we can just check if it's successfully booted from the target disk that we cloned to, which in this case will be the 480GB, because I cloned from the 120GB back to the 480GB, which I was using initially. So in my opinion, DiskGenius is the best free program that you can use to migrate your operating system to another drive. I'm going to show you how I create a bootable USB rescue disk with free utilities that you can use to fix your computer on the day that it crashes. Now, the first thing that you'll need is a blank USB flash drive. I recommend that it's at least 16 gigs in size for the ISO files that I'm going to be using in this guide. And you can go ahead and plug that into your computer, and then you can just have a look that it's detected in your computer. As you can see, my blank USB flash drive is drive letter H, and you need to take note of the drive letter of your blank USB flash drive. And then the next step, you need to open up your browser of choice, and then you need to download Ventoy. Now, all of the links that I use in this guide will be linked in my written guide on my website, and you can go ahead and get that from the video's description. But on this Ventoy GitHub page, you can just scroll down until you find the releases tab here on the right. Click on the Ventoy latest release, and then on this next page, just scroll down until you find the Ventoy windows.zip file. Click on that to download it. It's going to start the download for Ventoy, which will be a zip file. Once it's finished, just open it in your downloads folder, and then to extract this, just make sure that it's selected, and then right click on your mouse, and while pressing down right click, just drag it anywhere on an empty space in this folder, and then you're going to find this option to extract the files. Click on extract, and just click on extract again, and it's going to extract these files to a new folder inside of your downloads folder. Next, you need to open the Ventoy folder, and then you're going to find this Ventoy 2 disk application. You can double click on that to launch it. And then this Ventoy 2 disk application is going to launch, and you'll see your device listed here. I only have one USB flash drive plugged in, and it is on letter H, as you can see there. So this is the correct USB flash drive. Now to install Ventoy, just click on install. You'll be prompted that it's going to be formatted, just click on yes, and then click on yes again. And then it's going to install Ventoy to that USB flash drive. Now the great thing about Ventoy is that it can boot in both legacy and UEFI systems, meaning it can boot in older systems and newer systems that have secure boot enabled. Now once it's finished installing, just click on OK, and then you can close all of these windows. You can go ahead and open File Explorer again, go to this PC, and then once it's finished, you should see a new device called Ventoy, and you should also see another partition here called Ventoy EFI. I just don't see it right now. Most importantly, you'll need this one that says Ventoy, and you can just double click on that to open it and then minimize it, because now we need to copy some ISO files to this flash drive that we can use to fix our system in case it crashes. Now the first utility that I download is the Hirens Boot CDPE. And once you're on the web page, you can just click on the download tab here. On this web page, you can see all of the tools that come with the Hirens Boot CD. And to download it, just scroll all the way down until you find the file name. Click on this Hirens Boot CD ISO file, and then it's going to start downloading that ISO. And it's almost 3 gigs in size. Now, this ISO file is a bootable Windows pre-installed environment that has a bunch of utilities that you can use to fix your system, and you can go to the screenshots tab on their webpage to have a look at all of the utilities and how you can use it. And I'll also be showing you in a bunch of my other videos on this channel how I use the Hirens Boot CD to do various things like cloning disks, doing data recovery, fixing Windows, and all of that. So you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing some of that content as well. But to continue with this guide, I also recommend that you download the Windows 10 and 11 ISO files. To do that, you can come over to the downloads page for Windows, and on the Windows 10 downloads page, you can just scroll down, and then you can download the Windows 10 installation media. You can click on Download Tool Now, which will download the media creation tool for the latest version of Windows 10. Then you can click on it to launch it. The media creation tool should launch on your system. Just click on Accept to accept the terms. On this next screen, you can choose the option to create installation media. Select that option, then click on Next. And then you can change the language, edition, and architecture for this Windows ISO file, or you can just leave it on the recommended options for the PC that you're currently using to download this ISO file, which might be the best option for most of the people watching this video. But if you're more tech savvy, you can uncheck this option, and then you can change this to 32-bit, or you can select both. For this example, I'm just going to use the recommended options for this PC, and then click on Next. Next, just change this to ISO file, then click on Next. And now just choose a save location for this ISO file. I'll just choose the downloads folder, and then I'll call this Windows 10-22H2x64 for 64-bit, and then I'll just click on Save, and that's going to start downloading the Windows 10 ISO file to my computer. Now, while that's downloading in the background, as well as the Hirens Boot CD, we can go over to the Windows 11 downloads page, and on this downloads page, we can scroll all the way down until we find the Download Windows 11 Disk Image option. Click on this drop-down menu and then select Windows 11, then click on Download Now. Next, just choose your language. I'll just use English US, and then click on Confirm. And then you can click on 64-bit download, and that's going to start downloading the Windows 11 ISO file. So now we just need to wait for all of these downloads to finish, and then we can copy all of these ISO files to the Ventoy disk. Once all of these ISO files is finished downloading, you can then just go ahead and close all of these windows, and you can just exit out of the media creation tool for Windows 10. And then you can open your File Explorer, which should still be open on Ventoy, but you can navigate to your Downloads folder, and here you should see the ISO files that you just downloaded. Now you can go ahead and you can select all of them, and then you can just right click on any one and click on Copy, then navigate back to the Ventoy disk, and then just right click on the Ventoy USB flash drive and paste all of those ISO files on the Ventoy flash drive. So once you've copied all of these ISO files to the Ventoy USB flash drive, you can then use this USB flash drive to boot from one of these ISO files. And obviously you can add more ISO files like Linux or Ubuntu or any other bootable ISO file that you want to add. But most of the time I only use these 3 ISO files here. So to boot from this flash drive, you can restart your computer. While your computer is starting up, you need to press the boot menu key so you can select the temporary boot device. For me, it's F12, but you need to find out what key you need to press so you can select another boot device. Now, as you can see from the screen here, these two options are my USB flash drive that I just created. Now, this first one is the legacy boot option, and the next one is the UEFI boot option. Now, for this Ventoy rescue disk, it doesn't really matter which one you use here. But something very important that I need to show you is if you select the UEFI boot device and you have secure boot enabled, you might get a screen that looks like this, which says there's an error and it's failed the secure boot check. If you do get this, just press enter, and then you can select this option that says enroll key from disk, then press enter on the Ventoy EFI option. And then if you scroll down, you'll see this option that says enroll this key in Mock Manager. Then press enter, go down, press continue, then go down and press yes, and it's gonna enroll that key. Once that's done, click on reboot, and then you need to press the boot menu key again, which for me is F12. And once you've done that, and you navigate back to the UEFI option that we used earlier, and you press enter, it's going to boot to the Ventoy screen. Now, once you see this screen, you can select whichever option you want to boot from. For this example, let's just use the Hirens boot CD. And if you press enter and then just leave it to boot in normal mode and press enter again, it's going to load the Hirens boot CD files. And then once it's eventually started up, you'll be booted into this Hirens boot CD PE Windows 10 environment. And like I said earlier, this Hirens boot CD has a bunch of useful utilities. On this PC, I've got two different user accounts, and let's just say I don't know the password to any one of them. Now, this first account here is a local account on the computer, and the other one is a Microsoft account. And you can reset your Microsoft password or PIN by clicking on I forgot my PIN or I forgot my password. And then you can also reset it via your email and all of that. But in this video, I'm going to show you how you can remove a password from a local account as well as a Microsoft account without losing any data. Now, this is the exact process that I follow when I need to reset a password, and you will need a USB flash drive and access to another computer so you can create this recovery media. So you might need to borrow a friend's computer or go to some sort of internet cafe because you're going to need to create a bootable USB flash drive with the Hirens boot CD environment on it, because there's a tool in here that we're going to use to reset the passwords. Now, I have a dedicated video on my channel showing you how you can create a Ventoy bootable flash drive, and it also includes showing you how to download the Hirens boot CD and create a bootable drive with Ventoy. It's a step-by-step guide showing you how you can boot from that drive once you've created it, and I'm going to link that in the description of this video so you can go ahead and watch that first before following along to this guide. So once you've booted into the Hirens boot CD environment, you'll see this screen. And to start with the password removal, you'll need to click on the start menu down here, then click on all programs. Then you're going to click on security and then passwords. And then you're going to find Windows Login Unlocker. You can click on that, and it's going to launch this Windows Login Unlocker free tool. Now right here, it's going to show all of the users that are on your computer. And the first thing you need to have a look at here is the username. So right here, I can see memory, which is my user. I'm just going to disregard any of the other users there. Memory is my username of the local account that I forgot the password of. And I can tell it's a local account by looking at this live ID field here. So the live ID says no, which means it's a local account. It's not a Microsoft account. Whereas this Mems Tech Tips user down here is a live ID, meaning it is the Microsoft account. So to reset the password, you can select the user and then you can just click on reset or unlock. You'll get a prompt where you can just click on OK. It's then going to reset the password. Then you can click on OK. Now, the exact same process goes for the Microsoft account. You can just select it, then click on reset or unlock, and then you'll get a prompt that says this is a Windows Live account or a Microsoft account. And if you want to reset the password and then convert the account from a Microsoft account to a local account. So you can go ahead and click on OK to do that. And again, you'll see down here that it's busy processing the changes, and then you'll see that your password was reset successfully. So once that's done, you can click on OK. And if you've removed the passwords from all of your users, then you can just close this program. You can click on Start, and then you can click on this arrow down here and then just click on Restart. It's going to restart your computer, and at this point you can also disconnect the USB flash drive from your computer so it starts up back into Windows. Then once it's started up again, you'll see that you don't have to enter your password, so you can just click on sign in to sign into the user account, as well as this Microsoft account. I can just click on sign in and it's going to sign into that account. But for this video, I'm just going to sign into the local account, and then you'll have access back to your computer. To mirror and control your Android device from your computer, firstly, you're going to need either an Android smartphone or tablet. You're going to need a computer. Then you'll also need a USB cable so you can connect your Android device to your computer. And the USB connection is just for the initial setup. If your computer and Android device is on the same network, I'm going to show you how you can mirror and control your Android device wirelessly as well. And then lastly, you'll need a free software called SCRCPY, which stands for Screen Copy. So firstly, take your Android device and then you want to go and find Settings. I'm just going to scroll down on the notification bar and then tap on the settings icon here at the top. Then you want to scroll down all the way to About Phone and select that. If you can't find About Phone, then just use the search function and search for the About section of your phone. But once you get to About Phone, you want to find software information and then tap on that, because what you're looking for is the build number. I'm going to tap on the build number 7 times. And then you'll see that developer mode has been enabled. That has to be enabled for this to work. So then you can just go back and then you can do a search inside of settings for the developer options. So once you find this developer options setting, just tap on it. And then inside of the developer options, you need to scroll down until you find the USB debugging option. Then you need to turn that on. You'll get this prompt, just click on OK, and then you can exit out of this. Now you can go ahead and connect your Android device to your computer with the USB cable. So once that's done, open up your browser of choice and then do a Google search for SCRCPY. You should get these 2 results, and I usually download it from the GitHub page. So you can just click on this GitHub link here to open that page. And if you have trouble finding the correct site, you can just click on my written guide that's linked in the description of this video, and I'll have all of the links included in there as well. But once you're on this GitHub page, you can just scroll down until you get the releases here on the right, then click on the latest screen copy release, and then you can just scroll down until you find the assets, and then you can download the screen copy zip file. I'm going to choose Windows 64 because I have the 64-bit version of Windows installed. So I'll click on that to download the zip file. Once it's finished, just click on this folder so you can show it in your downloads folder. The file was downloaded to my desktop, but you can save it wherever you want. So because this is a zip file, you just need to extract it, and I'm just going to right click on it, hold down right click, then drag it to an empty space and then click on extract, then click on extract again. And then with these extracted files, what I recommend you do is just select this folder, right click on it, click on copy, then navigate to local disk C so you can save it on your C drive, then just right click and paste it on the C drive, and then open this screen copy folder. Now inside of this folder, you're going to find a bunch of files, and the one that you're looking for is this screen copy no console.vbs file. So with your Android device connected to your computer with the USB cable, you can just double click on this file, and you might get a prompt on your phone asking to allow the connection. Now I have full control over my Android phone from my computer, and everything I do on the computer here is mirrored on the Android phone and vice versa. So if you don't mind having your Android device connected to the computer with the USB cable at all times, then you can just go ahead and mirror your Android phone like this. But if you want to use it wirelessly, the thing you'll need to do is connect your computer and your Android device to the same network. So if we have a look at the Wi-Fi settings on my phone here, and we go to the Wi-Fi networks, you'll see that I'm connected to this Wi-Fi network here. And if we go to my computer and hover over the network icon, you can see that I'm connected to the same network. So what I can do in that case, I'm just going to go back on the phone, and just to prove that I'm currently connected to USB, you can see that I'm connected to the Galaxy A20 here on the USB cable. But to connect wirelessly, you can come back to the screen copy folder, then you can click on this open a terminal here.bat file, double click on that, and it's going to open this command prompt window. Then you can type SCRCPY space --TCP IP, then press enter. It's going to detect your phone on the network and automatically assign the IP to it. and then it's going to close the screen copy window and reopen it on your computer. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and disconnect the USB cable. So you'll see when I disconnect my phone from the computer, the Galaxy A20 is going to disappear from the list of devices on my computer, but I still have the phone connected to screen copy wirelessly. And you can see it is quite responsive and works really well, but that is going to depend on how fast your network speed is of your local area network. Then for those of you with some more computer knowledge, if you come back to this command prompt window, we can just close it and then we can open another terminal. If we go ahead and type SCRCPY --help, you'll also find a list of a whole bunch of other commands that you can use to tweak this screen copy app even further. But I'm not going to be going through that in this video, but for those of you that are interested in that, you can have a look at that. And the last important thing to note is once you've connected your Android device to your computer wirelessly, you can just go ahead and click on this VBS file again to get access to the Android device. As you can see, I'm not connected to it by USB here on the left, but once you restart the phone or restart your computer, you'll have to connect it via the USB cable first, then run the same screen copy TCP/IP command before you can use it wirelessly. Welcome to this quick guide where I'm going to show you how to boost your volume and sound quality on your Windows PC. And if you get any value out of this video, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. But to get started with the guide, if you want to improve the sound quality of your computer or just boost the volume in general, there's a great app that I want you to try out and see if it works for you. And this can also be a great replacement for the Realtek HD Audio Manager, which a lot of people has trouble getting to work on Windows 10 and Windows 11. So to start with this guide, open your web browser of choice and then do a Google search for the app called FXSound. You can do that Google search and then you should get this result that says fxsound.com. You can go ahead and open that web page, and this app is completely free and open source, and it used to be called the DFX Audio Enhancer. If you scroll down on this web page, you can see that it used to be a paid app and it used to be called DFX Audio Enhancer. But right now they decided to make it free and open source, and you can read more about that on their website here. But to download it, you can just scroll up and then you'll find this button that says download for Windows. You can click on that. It should prompt you for a save location. I'm just going to save it to the downloads and then click on save. And then it's going to start that download, which is 55 megs in size. And then once it's finished, you can just click on the FXSound setup exe file. It should start the installation for FXSound. Once it's finished installing, you should also see the screen where you can click on their GitHub page if you want to go and have a look at this GitHub page of them. But for this guide, I'm just going to close that and then exit out of this as well, which will then open up this FXSound main interface. Now basically on this first tab here on this drop down menu, you'll have the general equalizer selected by default, and you can change this to any of these presets. Like for instance, you can do the volume boost, which will make your sound louder. Or if you want a bass boost, you can click on bass boost and that's going to give you a bass boost. Or you also have the option of changing these sliders yourself to create your own equalizer. And that's why I say this might be a good replacement for the Realtek HD Audio Manager, because you have a lot of control over what your sound will sound like. On the second drop down menu here, you can choose your output device. So for most people, they should be selecting their normal speakers, but you just need to select your output device that you normally use, because that is the output device that the FXSound app is going to use. Now, once you've selected one of these presets, if you go to your Windows sound settings down here and you have a look at the output device that's selected, the output device should be set to the FXSound speakers, as your computer is going to be using the FXSound drivers as an output device. But in this drop down menu, you selected your physical speakers or your physical audio output device. So this needs to be set to your speakers, and then you just need to have a look at your Windows settings. So that is set to the FXSound speakers, and by default it should be set to the FXSound speakers if the FXSound application is open on your computer. Now also, if you click on these three lines here, which is also called the hamburger menu, you can save your presets if you've changed these settings. And then you can also download some bonus presets. You can donate to them, as this is free and open source. You can donate to support these developers. And then also if you go ahead and click on settings, you'll have access to some more settings here, as well as some keyboard shortcuts to make using this app a little bit easier. Now you can also just click on this power button up here if you want to enable or disable the FXSound app on your computer, because if you just close it normally, it will stay down in your system tray and it will still be open on your computer. But if you want to close it completely, you can just right click on it down here in the system tray and then click on exit, and that's going to exit the app completely. And if you want to relaunch it again, you can just use this desktop shortcut that should be created by default. So basically you can just leave this running in the background, and then any type of audio that you play through your computer is going to have this equalizer preset applied to it. I want to give a special shout out to all of my members on this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and my journey. I'll talk to all of you guys soon.